All right. Hey, how are you guys doing? Sorry, I'm a couple of minutes late. It's funny, I just spent an entire minute um talking to the camera thinking that it was live and I wasn't live. But I pray that you guys have had an amazing day. Let me know that y'all can hear me and let me know where you are from. Let me know where you are from or where you at right now. I have so much that I want to give you on tonight. As a matter of fact, let me get these notes off of my phone as y'all are loading in and y'all are telling me share and like this message, guys. Share and like it. All right. Share and like. Okay, let me get my notes. I got my notes here, and I was supposed to transport them to a document. That way, I don't have to keep unlocking my phone whenever I want to read something. And I'm running behind. All right. Hey, let me know where y'all from. Greensboro, Georgia. Hello. Thank you. New York City, Hiram, Georgia. Hey. Dallas, Texas, Kingston, Jamaica. Hello, Houston, Texas, Queens, Virginia. How are you, St. Louis? MIA. Is that Michigan? No, that's what is that? Is that Michigan? Forgive me if I'm wrong. No, Missouri. I don't know. I'll get it wrong. I'm telling you. All right, let me send this. Let me send these notes to myself real quick, so that I can get with y'all, and we're gonna get started in a minute. All right. Now that I sent them to myself, let me go open them up in a Word document, and we're gonna get started in 1 minute. This is something that's really important. Something that's been on my mind this week, and something that I think that we as the body of Christ need to be aware of. We got to be aware of the enemy's agenda and his ways. We have to be aware of it so that we can overcome him. And we overcome him, of course, the Bible tells us, by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So I'm going to be testifying. I'm going to share some stuff with you guys tonight, but I'm also going to do a whole lot of teaching. I may not be able to do all of this in one teaching. I know that I'm going to have at least 2 parts, but I'm thinking it may end up being a 3-part thing. But we'll see how it goes. All right. I had to get everything into a document, and let me see where I was, and then we're going to get started. Lord, don't tell me that I didn't say here. Let me see what I did. Oh, all right. I'm having a special moment. All right. I had a special moment. I'm back. My mind. Thank you. I feel like a hot mess because I was up there. That's why I was late. I was trying to throw some makeup on, and yeah, sometimes when you're throwing makeup on, yeah, you just. All right. So today I'm going to be dealing with demonic passports, and you'll come to understand what I mean by that. I'm also going to be dealing with the spirit of rejection. I'm going to be giving you characteristics and signs of the spirit of rejection. Today, I'm not going to have time to tell you how to overcome rejection. And I'm going to do that probably in the second or the third part. The reason that I won't have time is if I start going into that part, we'll likely be on here all night long. And I don't want the video to turn out to be really long. I always try to keep the videos at a small window, and I fail at it many times, but I try not to do like I used to do back in the day. And I always have those extremely long videos. I got quite a bit of complaints, and I have so many people that are supporting me, of course. So many people that are like, hey, I love the long videos. They're great for my commutes. And for those of you, if you ever come across a video of mine that is long, it is meaty. It has weight. It has a lot of things in it. So one of the things that I often tell people is that you don't have to unpack it in one sitting. So because it's always baffled me when people try to tell me, hey, stop doing long videos. And I'm like, you don't have to unpack it in one sitting. You can actually take the time out and say, okay, if it's a 3-hour, 4-hour video and your attention span is only an hour, then you watch 1 hour of the video. You find you a nice little spot to stop, a nice little truck stop, and you park it right there and you come back. That's how I do with things. Sometimes it's no different than reading a book. When you're reading a book, that you're probably not going to read it in its entirety in one setting. So what you're going to do is you're going to find a spot to say, okay, I'm on page 74. I'll come back and read the rest. So it has always kind of baffled me when I got emails from people who say, hey, your videos are too long. But then again, I had to be aware of the fact that there are some people who have low, short attention spans. And I do want to make sure that they are getting fed as well. I don't want to punish them. And so prayerfully, I can stretch their attention span over the course of time. So we're going to go ahead and get into the message. Demonic passports. I'm gonna help you to understand what I mean by this. Now, first and foremost, you guys know what passports are, and I think I should have titled it demonic green cards. Demonic green cards. So if you don't know what a green card is if you are a foreigner to the United States. You don't live in the United States. You were born outside of the country, and you decide that you want to become a permanent resident of the United States. And so what you will need is called a green card. There are many ways that you can go about getting a green card. But the most promising and the most prevalent way of getting a green card is through marriage. And, there are many people that have reached out to me that have been victims of green card marriages. And when I say victims of it, meaning they genuinely thought that they were falling in love with a person and that person was falling in love with them. They end up marrying the person, and then after so many years, they, came to realize that, hey, I don't think this person is with me for the right reason. And then they came to realize that they were a victim of a green card scam. The person, they discovered, I've heard stories from people saying, hey, I discovered the man had a whole wife and children. I discovered the man had this and he had that. And you guys know I used to be married to a foreigner, and I'm not going to go into the details of that, but I will say this. When you have been married to somebody from another country, especially a country that's considered third world, especially from a poor family, a lot of times they do desperate things. And so it's easy to get mad at them. But at the end of the day, you probably never lived through their level of desperation. You've never lived through their level of desperation. At the same time, a lot of times, like in America, our culture is different from cultures. Thank you, Sister Letitia. God bless you. From cultures in other countries. Because we are more independent, America is considered to be a superpower. We're able to go and make our own money and do things like that. We don't necessarily feel like we need people. And many times we will kind of distance ourselves from people who are hurting, people who hurt us. But in other countries, when I say hurt us, I'm talking about family members. I think we are in a trend right now where people are waking up and seeing that, hey, I got toxic family and I shouldn't have to endure this abuse. It's not normal and I'm not going to take it. And so you have a lot of people who are kind of migrating away from the whole, their family. They're putting distance and space between themselves and their families and stuff like that. But many times in other countries, people don't necessarily have that mindset. As a matter of fact, when you start dealing with a lot of people from places like Africa, just a lot of countries, and when I say Africa, that's an entire continent, but I'm talking about when you go to the poor areas of Africa, because not every country in Africa is a third world country. But when you start going into, poor areas and stuff like that, you come to find out a lot of people are taught that family is everything. That's culture. Family is everything. You have to, no matter what happens, it's taught so deeply. Like, even if you get married, your spouse is second to your family, which is anti-biblical. But that's what a lot of people are taught, that your spouse is our wife, or what have you. She belongs to us as, entire family. And not just that. She has to do certain things, or she has to act a certain way. And if she offends somebody in the family, it's like offending the spouse as well. And so consequently, you will see a lot, especially Americans, when American marries someone from some countries, there's going to be a lot of rift, because a lot of times when you're dealing with other countries, their families don't know boundaries, because they were never taught that. They were taught that family is everything. Sister Jessica says similarly to her culture, right? But they're taught that family is everything. And because of that, if you don't honor certain things, then you can get in trouble with the family. But nevertheless, again, a lot of people in some of the poorer areas, even, and it's not just the entirety of Africa, but it's places like India, just any country where there are where you're going to find third world, where you find a whole lot of poverty, you will see people who are trying to get into the United States. And believe me when I tell you, it's not easy to get a passport, a visa, or a green card to the United States. It's not easy at all. And most of the times, you have people that they will attempt to come into the country the right way. They'll attempt to come in the right way. Nevertheless, they're rejected. They do the passport application, they do all of the other stuff, but they're rejected. And when you couple rejection with, what was I going to say? When you deal with rejection like that, when you couple rejection with desperation, a lot of times what happens is people start devising really dark things to do to other human beings in order to accomplish their own agenda. And a lot of times they'll reason within their minds that I'm not being mean, I'm not being evil, but I'm looking out for my family. Because a lot of times when people are coming from third world countries, they are very extremely family oriented. In the United States of America, we love our families, but we're not as family oriented. We're not taught that there are everything. We know that cousin Louis over here needs, you're gonna have to keep him out your house because he'll break into your stuff. He'll steal your stuff. We know that, but when you're dealing with a lot of places in Africa, a lot of people don't necessarily have that same understanding because cousin Louis is family. So, and it depends on what country and it depends on what the culture is. But some people will just reason, we just gonna grab a bunch of sticks and we gonna beat cousin Louis and try to give him some sense of what have you. But when you couple rejection with desperation, a lot of times people can do some really evil things. And a lot of times when you have somebody that's trying to get a green card, regardless of what country they're from, when you have people that are trying to get a green card, they're not just trying to do it for themselves. They're actually looking out for their family. They're not just trying to do it for themselves. They're actually looking out for their family because they've seen starvation. They've looked death in the face. They've looked at so much stuff. And so they can do things wicked. So you can have a guy that has a whole wife over in Africa, a whole wife and whole children and everything. And he can look at his wife and say, listen, this is necessary. If you want us to be able to survive, you got to let me marry that American woman. I got to marry her and I got to marry her under these pretenses. And I need to stay married to her for this long. And if I stay married to her for this long, then I'll be able to migrate into the country. Then I'll send for you and the children. And people actually do that kind of stuff. In our minds, in our worlds, that is high level deception. That's like wicked. That's wrong. But to that particular man, what he's doing is he's doing what it takes to feed his family. It's no different than, and I hate to say this, but it's no different than a prostitute who has children. And that's what she says. She says, I'm doing what I got to do to make sure my children are fed. Even if that means that she has to go to the bottom of bucket and be viewed a certain way. At the end of the day, for her, that level of desperation has driven her into some dark things. Okay, so whenever you're dealing with passports or when you're dealing with green cards, what you're doing is making an exchange. So if you start dating somebody from another country, you and that person, let's say, for example, decide that, you're going to stay in the United States, you are making an exchange. That person has to give up something, and so do you. You both have to give up something. Let me get to my notes. But both of you have to give up something in order to cause it to come to pass. So basically, it's like this. That person is going to either pretend that they love you. In some cases, they can't love you. In some cases, there are cases where people will get into marriages and they actually will start to like or even think that they love the person that they got into a green card marriage with or what have you. But the whole premise behind it is desperation. The whole premise behind it is desperation. It's about getting them from one place to another. All right, so the reason I wanted to talk about that, because When it comes to demonic spirits, I want you to understand that this is very similar to what they are doing. This is very similar to what they're doing. They're trying to make an exchange. Demons have no legal, they don't have a body. And because they don't have a body, they don't have any power in the earth. They have no ability to move anything. They have no ability to do anything. So I want you to imagine this. They are cast down into the earth. They're these invisible creatures, and they can detect and discern or maybe even see each other. But I think their definition of seeing is not necessarily like our definition of seeing. But they're in this world. These are creatures that used to be in heaven. These are eternal creatures. Please understand. These are eternal creatures. They used to be in heaven and they got kicked out. That's no different. And I won't say no different because it's similar to being Paris Hilton and having the world at your fingertips, having daddy and mommy, grandmom, and everybody just laying the world at your fingertips, just taking and giving you everything. And then you get fame, you get all of this stuff, and you really never had to do anything, but you were just born into it. And then you turn around and you have somebody to take Paris Hilton and throw her into a third world country. Nobody knows her. Nobody recognizes her. She's pretty much just seen, but kind of invisible. She has no money. She has no power. What do you have? You have somebody that's going to begin to act and think and reason as an unclean spirit. Because right then and there, she's accustomed to one lifestyle, and now she's on the other side of that spectrum, experiencing something far worse. So demons were angels that were in heaven. They had the world, they had everything at their fingertips. Like there was nothing that they really couldn't have, nothing that they wanted to have. They had rank and they had levels and stuff like that. But they had, you have streets paved in gold. Everything is beautiful. But what Satan did was he lied to them. He went to them the same way he went to Eve. He said, you can be like God. God is keeping you from this information, and God is keeping you from that information. Now understand, Satan, when he was in heaven, he was called Lucifer, and he was a high-ranking spirit. So what he was doing is he's saying, hey, behind the scenes, I know stuff about God that y'all don't know about God, and this is what he's withholding from you. This is what he's keeping y'all from. See, what I bet you don't know is I bet you don't know that you could be your own God. You know that you can start your own thing. You know that you can do your own thing. And this is what he did. And many of the angels, what that did was it created this dissatisfaction in them. It created this dissatisfaction in them, whereas they had been content, happy, worshiping God, happy. But then whenever the enemy sowed that seed, and he's a specialist at that, he'll come to you. And you can be married. For those of you who say you want to be married, you can be married. You can have a big house. You can have millions of dollars in your bank account. You can have beautiful, healthy children. You can have a husband that loves you or a wife that loves you. You can have all the beautiful things that you want. But Satan, all he has to do is sow one little seed in your mind about something that you do not have. And this is the reason why only 1% of the population of the entire world owns more than 90% of the wealth. Because what happens is you go through it every day. Every single day of your life, you experience where you'll think of something that you don't have. And Amazon is having a blast with you. I know they've had a blast with me. I'm rebuking myself in this hour. But Amazon has had a blast with you because you sit back and you think to yourself, thank you, Trail, God bless you. You think to yourself, I would love those shoes. I would love this. Have a closet with 300 pair of shoes in it, but you still see something that you want. You still see something that you want to get, and that's what the enemy does. He specializes in dissatisfaction. So if he can get you dissatisfied, he can get you into depression. Most of the times, that's going to be one of your manifestations of depression is dissatisfaction. It's something that you want, and you're not getting it fast enough, and sometimes it's just a temper tantrum of yours. It's just you sitting there getting upset because maybe you wanted to, I can say, for example, in 2018 for me was the worst year of my life. It was the hardest year for me to experience because I went through so many attacks in 2018. But before my mother passed, even before my mother passed, I was going through a whole lot of heavy warfare. But I remember before everything happened, like early 2018, I wanted to buy a home. I started going through this thing of I want to buy a house, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I started going and looking on websites and doing stuff like that. Well, the thing was, it's not that God didn't want me to have a house. Thank you, Sister Ashley. God bless you. But my reasoning for wanting to get out of my house was what God wasn't about to support. It was because I was having, I had new neighbors. I was a little bit frustrated with those neighbors, and I just wanted to get away from them. And God was like, no, I'm not about to finance you running. I'm not about to finance you going into that. That's how you have lived your life over the course of your life. So I want you to stand there, and I want you to heal, forgive. I want you to pray, and I want you to take authority over every unclean spirit. I didn't create you to run. Anytime you start dealing with an unclean spirit, when you start dealing with certain things, you better bind that thing up. And so what ended up happening was, while I was trying to get a house, I started dealing with a major financial attack. I started dealing with a major financial attack. So many things that were going wrong in 2018, because God was saying basically, like, no, there's some things I want you to do while you're still in this house. So hope deferred makes the heart sick. What did I tell y'all last time? Hope deferred makes the heart sick. What does that mean? Hope deferred or delayed makes you mentally ill, because when the Bible talks about the heart, it's really talking about the mind. And so it's an attack against the mind. So in 2018, I experienced a lot of depression. In 2018, I experienced a lot of frustration. In 2018, I experienced a lot of anxiety. I functioned through it because, it was not something that was new to me, but I was able to function through it. Nevertheless, I still dealt with those things. So that's that. But back to the message. When you're dealing with passport, or you're dealing with a demonic passport, you want to think about Satan in his position. All of a sudden, him and his angels were cast out of heaven. They're like Paris Hilton, thrown into a third world country. They're thrown into a place where they're seen. They have no power. They have no wealth. They have nothing. They have nothing. And not only that, even though they're cast into the earth, they're kind of foreigners in the earth. So what they had to do is they had to, thank you, Sister Ashley. What they had to do was they had to find some type of way to get into a body. They had to find some type of way to get into a body so that they can have a green card or a passport or a visa in the earth. Because they were just kind of like foreigners, no power. They didn't have the power to vote. They had no say. And they're accustomed to having all of these things. And now they're just walking around and they're literally unable to do anything. And then all of a sudden you have people, God made humans a little lower than angels. So you have people that used to be under you, all of a sudden, they're over you. They're over you. And so what ends up happening is Satan devised a way. Let me find a way to access a human. I need to be able to if I can get into the body of the human, then we can have some measure of power or authority again. So here comes Satan into the Garden of Eden. He finds Eve sitting there chilling, and she has one commandment, along with her husband. A lot of people argue, God told Adam, and Adam was supposed to communicate that to his wife. But he failed at being the head of his home and communicating that to his wife. And I don't think that's the case. Eve came from Adam's rib. I don't believe that it was a communication issue. I think that it was an issue of just plain out rebellion. Eve rebelled against God because Satan told her she can be as God. And so she looked at the fruit and she considered it. When she was considering it, what she was doing was she was weighing. And she was thinking to herself, so basically, and this is what Satan did with her, he created dissatisfaction. They got this entire garden the size of the earth. They got the entire garden that they can eat from. They got the entire garden. I won't say the size of the earth, but eaten. But they got this entire garden, this huge garden with all these fruit trees. They got all of this stuff, but it's that one tree that they can't have. And they were okay with that. They were content with that. But then Satan pointed out that one thing that they could not have. That one thing that they cannot have. This is how he destroys marriages. That's how he destroys marriages. What he'll do in a marriage is he'll show a man or he'll show a woman the one thing that the spouse is not giving them, or the one thing that they had with the last girl, but they can't give with this one, or the one thing they have with the last man, but they can't give with this man. He specializes in dissatisfaction. So you got these demonic spirits walking the earth. They have no body. Satan gets this bright idea. Let me go into the garden and let me deceive this woman and see if I can kind of get into her body from there. So what he goes and he does is he deceives her. She rebels against God. Consequently, she automatically falls under a declared word of God. She falls under an already declared word of God. So for those of you who say, how can God be real and, let people suffer, all of this evil and suffering on the earth, that's why it's hard for me to believe that he exists. Well, let me tell you what this was. God created hell for Satan and his angels. And I heard it on TikTok. This one man said it so eloquently. I'm trying to see how this man said it. He was talking about, he said Lucifer wanted his own kingdom. God gave it to him. The kingdom of hell, of course, the kingdom of darkness. God gave it to him. He wanted to be without God. God is love. God gave it to him. Everything that he wanted, God gave him, but God, was not a part of it. So when you had God that's completely removed, thank you, Sister Telsha, God bless you. You have God that's completely removed from the equation. What do you have? Hell. When you have no love, when you have no order, you have no peace. Everything that God is, God gave Satan. He's like, okay, you want it? I tell you what, you can have it. So you got your own kingdom and what have you, and everything removed. And so that's what you have is hell. So here it is. These angels are fallen and they're walking around and they're trying to figure out how to get the body. They figure it out. They're able to deceive Eve. They're able to deceive Adam. And then what happens is they are cast down. They're cast down. They're cast out of Eden, but that means they're cast down in rank. They were already in the earth. So that it's not like they were in heaven and then they fell. No, they fell in dimension. And so what that did was it caused them to basically fall down here with the enemy. They were condemned with the enemy. They were condemned. So they fell in accordance with what God had already declared. Spirits that don't obey him, spirits were going ahead. Every spirit that didn't obey him, spirits of rebellion or what have you. And so when Adam and Eve fell, you got to remember they are spirits inside of a body. Forgive me for being all over the place, guys, but I promise you I know where I'm going. But they were spirits inside of a body. And so because they were spirits inside of a body, when they fell under the word that God had already declared. They fell under a word that God had already declared. But what God did, and you'll find this in the book of Genesis, when they fell, God realized, okay, they fell and they were deceived. Even though they rebelled, they were deceived. So I'm going to have mercy on mankind. I can't allow them to stay in the garden, but I'm going to have mercy on mankind. And God didn't kick them out of the garden to punish them, but God kicked them out of the garden to keep them from eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You'll find that in the Bible. I was reading that. My apostle put that in his book, and it's really powerful. Okay, so you have then, and they get man down to their level, and now they're able to possess mankind. Because what happens is God has separated himself from mankind. He hasn't divorced mankind. He divorced Satan. He divorced Satan and his angels, but he had a legal separation from mankind. When he had this legal separation from mankind, Satan and his angels had a blast. They were able to get these passports into the lives of people, and some people, they were able to get green cards. So the difference, of course, passport is temporary. It just allows you to come into a country for a specific amount of time. I had a passport to Germany, and that's the reason I stayed in Germany for 6 months, because my passport, literally, when I left Germany, I think my passport, I had already spent more time than I was supposed to be there. And I was real scared, but passport only allows you in many countries like 6 months, to stay in a place. And then after that, you got to go back to your country. So many of those demons, they had visas. Of course, they wanted to have permanent residence in a human. They wanted to permanently live in that person until that person passed away, and then they would just kind of move over generationally. And one of the ways that they had to do it was they used this vehicle called rejection. Rejection is the most powerful weapon of the enemy to this day. Because when we experience rejection, when Adam and Eve were cast out of heaven and God essentially rejected them, I want you to imagine that that was hell within itself. I don't think we to this day know the measure of pain that caused, because they were pretty much just kind of cast out of the world that they knew. But it was their own faults, right? They wanted to be their own gods. They wanted to have their own kingdoms. They wanted to do their own thing. And that's one of the things. You want to mess around and have all these fantasies, and God said, I'll give you what you want. But when he said, when I bless you, I'll add no sorrow to it. So if God allows you, remember he talked about those who worship the creature more than the creation. He turned them over to a reprobate mind to do what they wanted. So sometimes God can turn you over to the thing that you want. But here's the problem, and this is where depression and suicide and all this crazy stuff comes in. When he gives you what you want because you made an idol out of that thing, he turns around and moves away from it. See, because what we want, I want the man of God. But God says, okay, yeah, you're not ready yet. Give me some time. I want you to seek me first. He says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and everything else be added to you. But if I'm sitting there in my immaturity and I say, no, I hear you, God, but I just don't think I should have to wait. Especially considering my childhood, all the trauma that I've gone through. Do you know all of the things that I've gone through? And I keep rebelling. And no matter what, God gives me warning, he gives me sign, he gives me everything. And yet I keep rebelling against him, and I get his word, I get what I need, yet and still I keep rebelling against him. God could easily turn me over to a reprobate mind. And so basically he can give me quail and let me eat it until it's pouring out of my mouth and pouring out of my ears. That's Old Testament, what he did to the Israelites. He can give me what I want, but he'll remove himself from it. So he can give me the mansion. He can give me the man. He can give me the children. I want y'all to hear me. He can give me, thank you, Sister S. Forbes, God bless you. He can give me everything, but he has no part in it. And if the blesser is not in it, guess what it's called? Can anybody guess? Anybody guess? If the blesser is not in it, what is it called, what he's giving me? Amen. Amen. Nobody? A curse. Thank you, Sister Monica. Thank you, Sister. It's called a curse. So if I remove the blesser and I say, I want the house, I want the car, I want the wealth, I want the body. They got in Mexico, I can go get a Brazilian butt lift, which I never will do any mess like that. I'm sorry, I ain't dying for nobody trying to look. You just gonna have to accept me as I am. I'm sorry. But if I sat there and I kept rebelling and rejecting God, he can do to me what he did to Israel. He can turn me over to the one thing that I like, the one thing that I love, the thing that I worship, and that thing becomes a curse. So now I'm a slave to it. I can have the big house, but you know what? I got to do some real dark, dirty things to keep it. I can have the man, but you know what? He whooping my tail and cheating on me with everything that has a hole in it. Thank you, Sister Kat. God bless you. I can have the desires of my heart without God, and that's called a curse. That's called a curse. And this is what caused Satan to become very angry. Because now he got what he wanted. He got the kingdom. He's got a kingdom of darkness. He's got that, but God removed himself from it. He wanted the blessing too, but he didn't get God's blessing. It's no different than being a part of a church. Very similar than coming to a church and doing things the wrong way, being completely disrespectful and not want to follow protocol, and then trying to split the church, but then walking up to the pastor and saying, can I have a blessing to take your members with me to my newly established church? And the pastor don't bless you. Now you know what you're doing. You're running around telling people church hurt. You're running around talking about, that's what happened with Satan. Satan did not get God's blessing. He did not get God's blessing. And this is what's happening to many people today, is the anger is not that you don't have what you want. You just didn't get God's blessing with it. And without God's blessing, the man is not going to stick with you. And if he does stick with you, baby, he going to hit you. He going to cheat on you. He going to do everything that's anti-God, because you know where you are? Outside the will of God. Outside the will of God, God is going to be absent. Outside the will of God, you're going to experience a snippet of hell. A snippet of hell. Now you have a little bit of mercy. That mercy in your hell is called a little bit of rain. God will give you an opportunity to repent. God will give you a measure of mercy, meaning it ain't killed you yet. You ain't completely crazy yet. But many times you've gotten bitter. You're losing your mind. You're sad. You're depressed. Stop right now. Let me stop right here. Before we go any further, let's get some likes and shares. Because I realize when I don't say that, a lot of you guys forget. So let's get some likes and shares going on. Especially to my YouTube fam. I'm not YouTube. Yeah, YouTube, but Facebook family. I need you guys to like and share. Facebook, like and share, like and share, like and share. But that's how the enemy does. The enemy is able to successfully cause dissatisfaction, and then he'll get you to repeatedly reject God until God says, you know what? You can have that man. Take it. Take him. You know, it's kind of funny. If you have a wife, a woman that is tired enough, I'll say that, and there's another female in her husband's life, and he's committing adultery and stuff like that, and the wife know the husband ain't no good. She know he ain't gonna do nothing but cheat. He a dog. He done took her through hell. He a narcissist. He done took her through some stuff. And the other female over there calling her job, acting crazy, stalking her, pulling up in front of her house and acting crazy. That wife can make a decision. And I've said this to women many times. That wife can make a decision. And the worst thing she can do to the other woman is give her that man full time. Worst thing. Because when you're dealing with a woman that's deceived, she thinks, oh, she's going to go over there to her and they're going to be happy. They're going to be having babies. No, worst thing a woman can do is give that female that man full time. Love you, sis. Thank you. Give that woman that man full time, meaning she say, you know what? And I'm not encouraging divorce. I'm encouraging you guys pray or what have you, but you can't go against the will of a human being. Worst thing she can do is give that woman that man full time. You think you want him. Because what's happening is you see him part time. So he gets to show you what he showed me when we were dating. But you don't get a chance to see all of this crap. You don't get a chance to see all of that. And if she moves out of the way and gives that woman full time, I can guarantee you that woman will call her and say, hey, come get your man. Come get him. Give him back to you. Come get him. This is what happened with Satan. Satan got surprised that God didn't give him the blessing. That's what rejection is. Right? Congratulations on your headache. Without the Advil, the Aleve, or whatever you think you're going to need. You're going to just have to deal with it. Or what have you. And I'll even make him obsessed with you. Hopefully he become obsessed with you. Or what have you. So that's what Satan did. And this is what's happening in the earth right now. When I'm talking about dissatisfaction, I'm not talking about the world. The world is innately dissatisfied. But Christians, when we have dissatisfaction, we set ourselves up for bondage. In comes the spirit of rejection. In comes the spirit of rejection. Because rejection likes to catch you in the womb. Rejection likes to catch you in your immaturity. Rejection likes to reproduce itself in and through you because it's getting its passport in the earth. That spirit has no body and it has to get inside of your body. It has to get you to marry it in an event called agreement. And you know what happens? The majority of people come into agreement with rejection. How? If you've been rejected by your father, rejected by your mother, then all you know is rejection. That's it. You don't know nothing else. You know rejection. And so consequently, you start exhibiting certain behaviors, rebellion, rejecting other people, and we'll get into that and what have you. You start doing that, and that spirit, you come into agreement with that spirit. When you come into agreement with that spirit, then you're now married to it. And what do married couples do? They reproduce. That spirit has to reproduce itself. It has to reproduce itself. So it's going to have to cause you to feel or experience rejection again and again, especially for empaths and prophetic people. Again and again and again and again and again. And so every time, and that's how it becomes a strong man. Another word for strong man in this case is the husband. It becomes a husband spirit. So every time you get hurt, it allows you to open yourself up for other unclean spirits to come in. And these are they're like your little children. It opens you up for sabotage. It opens you up for envy, comparison. It opens you up for so many different things that you end up struggling with. These are your little kids. And what it does is it makes sure that you never operate in your purpose. 2, you never experience the true love of God. So you know what happens? You essentially reject God. You may accept him as a Christian. This is why God said they draw nigh me with their mouths, but their hearts are far from me. That's what's real. That's the very definition of religion. Is when we go, yeah, the bullshit, but your heart way over there because you want that man, you want that house, you want something else. One of the lessons that God had to teach me is it's okay to want stuff, but don't want it more than you want me. And if you ever find yourself wanting something so badly, that sacrifice it, because that thing is trying to become a God in your life. Sacrifice it. Thank you, Sister Mary. God bless you. Sacrifice it. The enemy specializes in rejection. And most of the time, I will say, 98, I always say 90, but it's really 98% of deliverances are the strong man is rejection. The husband is rejection. That spirit that's operating as a strong man is rejection. And every other spirit is there because it was let in by rejection. It was allowed in by rejection. How did rejection get in? It got into the womb. The mother was rejected. It got in when you were a child, when you went to school, and maybe you were prophetic. You know, when you're prophetic, you're going to be a little bit on the weird side. So people didn't necessarily embrace you. Your peers didn't embrace you. Maybe you were rejected by your siblings. Maybe you were rejected by your boyfriend, what have you. But you start experiencing rejection, and you start seeing how painful rejection can be. And when you start experiencing rejection, you never want to experience it again, because it's an event that is truly painful. It's an event that is truly painful. Then you start developing behaviors to cope with rejection, especially after you've experienced it multiple times. You start developing behaviors, and you start developing the characteristics, or a better word for characteristics, you start developing the personality of the spirit of rejection, because you are now married to it. And so when you start developing his personality, that means that you have gotten intimate with that spirit. And if you've gotten intimate with that spirit, now you're starting to reproduce. So now you got a little child called rebellion. You got a little child called pride. You got a little child called Leviathan. You got Python over here. You end up with a whole bunch of unclean spirits in your life. I want to show you how this thing is working in many believers' lives. It came in when you were a child. It came in when you were a child. Not only did it come in, thank you, Sister Mary. No, not only did it come in when you were a child, but it's been reproducing itself. And I'm going to give you some characteristics of it. But what you have to do, because a lot of times when people come to me and they're trying to figure out how do I get free and all this other stuff, even when it comes to like spirit husbands and stuff like that, people like, how I want to get cast out. And I tell people, I say, you got to give it back your stuff. That means those behaviors, to my sexy sisters, that means those vows you learn. All that stuff that you learned, you got to give the devil back his stuff. And you know what? That's not easy, because you learn to cope. It takes time to learn to give the devil back his stuff. Because now all of these little kids, they serve as coping mechanisms for you to get through life. And if we take away your ability to cope, you start crazy. That's why you don't always go through deliverance, when God takes a person through deliverance, or if somebody goes to a deliverance ministry. That's why a lot of times, if the person is severely bound and that spirit is really intimate, close to that person, they don't necessarily get all the deliverance in one setting. And that's because you got all these little coping mechanisms. And if you take that from that person, they won't know what to do. You take all their little copers, they don't know what to do. And so they have to learn. And this is why, to accelerate deliverance, hear this. You need to make sure that you're in a good Bible-based church, and you need to be studying the Word of God. You need to get you some books. Because you need knowledge. This is how you get rid of those kids, all these little kids that you've had. Rebellion ain't going nowhere until you get rid of rejection. Thank you, Sister Nene. God bless you. Till you get rid of rejection, rebellion ain't going nowhere. Because you know what? You're going to keep rebelling against God because that's all you know. You'll keep rebelling against him. You're going to go out there and you may go to church and you'll be clapping and praising God and everything. But soon some little nappy head boy come look at you and he start talking to you real good. You will rebel against God, because here is your opportunity to be accepted. And anytime there's an opportunity for you to be accepted, and then you realize that there is a sacrifice, because 9 times out of 10 you're transactional, what you're going to do is say, what is the sacrifice? You got to give it up. Wait, but God told me to present my body as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to him, which is my reasonable service. But then, Tyrone over here said we're going to get married anyway. God is a forgiving God. I don't give it up to Tyrone. I don't think he ever been in a relationship with somebody without them having sex with him. And he said he loved me, and I could tell the way he looked at me. Will God really condemn me for having sex outside of marriage? Will Tyrone wait till we marry? And you realize Tyrone ain't waiting on nobody. But God is forgiving. So you know what you do? You give up the sin offering. This is what people do. You give up the sin offering. You give the offering to hold on to Tyrone, all the while trying to hold on to your relationship with God. But what happens in this is you take God, and now you put Tyrone, you put two people first. Your needs, because you want a man and you don't want Tyrone to leave you. So that's you first, and you put Tyrone. So this is what we do. We switch seats. God goes to the back seat. So we think as long as he's in the vehicle, he's good. I'm still a Christian. I ain't walking away from God. I still, when I go to church, I still cry. I still fall out and everything. But see, God ain't number one. And we think that, well, okay, yeah, God in the backseat a little bit, just right now. But, we're going to switch seats. As soon as me and Tyrone get married, we're going to switch seats. God can come back. He can take his place. No. What's in Tyrone and what's in you has to stay in the front seat. Submit yourself to God. Resist the devil and he will flee from you. You're going to lose that man. You're going to lose. You'll lose all. If you submit to God, everything that came into your life illegally, if it makes a decision that it doesn't want, that man don't make a decision to get saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Spirit. It's a difference between him making a decision to remain Christian. Because you can find guys who, I still go to church, I still believe in God, and they're willing to go to a church, but they're not willing to commit fully and wholeheartedly to God. And they have to remain. When you put somebody, hear this, when you put somebody in God's seat, when you put somebody in the front seat, they will never take the back seat. They ain't taking it. They're not taking this. They're not going to take the back seat in your life. So when you marry them and you say, okay, now our sex is legal, back in the will of God. You're not. Because in your heart, you're still a fornicator. You're covered by the blood of the Lamb, but you're still in agreement with fornication. And so fornication is still behind the wheel of your car. You guys have listened to me enough. What is fornication called when you put a ring on it? Who wants to answer? When you take a wedding ring and put it on fornication, what is it called? I'm going to wait. Because I already know y'all been studying with me for a while, so y'all know what it's called. There we go. My sister Jessica got it. Adultery. As soon as you put, right, idolatry as well. When you put that ring on it, there go my Esther Peppers. Hey, I love y'all. Hey, everybody. That's right, adultery. Now, what you're suffering from is no longer fornication, but it's adultery. Now, idolatry and adultery are basically the same on two spectrums. Idolatry is putting someone before God. Adultery is putting someone before your spouse. It's cheating on your spouse. So having an affair. You get into idolatry before you get into adultery. So if a man is cheating on you, hear me when I say this, or if a woman is cheating on you, they were in idolatry before they went into adultery. They were in idolatry first, and then when it came down to the earth, it was called adultery. And it manifested in your household, it's called adultery. So you put a wedding ring on it, and you're like, because that's deception. You're like, yay, yay, yay. But you got to understand, that spirit is not trying to get cast out. A spirit is not going to say, okay, well, thank you so much for allowing me to have access. Thank you for feeding me. You're right. Letting me have a body to operate in. Thank you so much. No, it ain't going nowhere. It's not going anywhere. As a matter of fact, to secure its position, it's going to make sure that it opens you up for other spirits. It has to create a kingdom. Thank you, Sister Nigel. God bless you. It has to create a kingdom. So what it's going to do is, let's say Tyrone is planning to marry you. You and Tyrone, y'all going to get married for real. That spirit has to allow you to go through hurt. Tyrone never went through full consecration. So Tyrone is going to likely cheat because he's been cheating on God. So now you're going to get a whiff of that. There are things that you're going to go through with Tyrone and other issues that you're going to experience in life. So you're going to constantly feel the rejection that you made God feel when you put him in the back seat. I'm telling you, this is how God ministered to me when I was married. When I used to go before God and I was like, he put other people before me, and God would say, I know how you feel. And I'm like, oh, I'm coming to you, Lord. And I'm looking, for you to comfort me. And instead, you're cutting me. You're cutting me. And I needed to be cut. You end up dealing with a bunch of issues, especially rejection, because Tyrone rejected God when he pulled your panties down. He rejected the will of God. I'm not saying he rejected God as being his God. He rejected God as being his Lord. Jesus said, why call me Lord and you don't obey me? He didn't reject him as his Savior. He rejected him as his Lord. And you were doing the same thing. So what ends up happening is when you reject one Lord, you have to accept another. Y'all, can I teach y'all tonight, or do I need to get off of here? Because I need y'all to be liking and sharing. I really do. I need y'all to be liking and I need y'all to be sharing, because I believe that you guys are going to get something from this. You're going to get something from this. But I don't want you to be stingy with your likes. I don't want you to be stingy with your shares. Share, like. Let's get those likes up. Let's get them up. Now you start experiencing everything. Hear this. Everything you cause God to experience, you're going to experience. Everything you cause, you're going to have a mirrored reflection of what you cause him to experience. I learned it the hard way because I kept getting these reflections of what I was doing to God. And that's why I pulled myself back. I was like, yo, I'm doing this the right way from this point on. I'm not trying to, I'm just going to chase God. I'm just going to get to know him. You experience it. So now you end up in a relationship with Tyrone, who is rejecting God. Essentially, he rejects not as Savior, but as Lord. Not as Savior. He's saved, but he rejects him as Lord. Meaning he ain't trying to serve him like that. So Tyrone will dishonor your father by pulling your drawers down. He the priest of the home. And the priest is over there like, take your drawers off. But yeah, he hasn't paid the price. In order for you to feel accepted by Tyrone, you go into fornication. You know what you're doing? You're not just reproducing with Tyrone. You're reproducing with the spirit of rejection. That's what you're doing. You're reproducing with the spirit of rejection. Y'all forgive me for I hate when I put on a shirt and I have to constantly pull it up. I don't realize it until I go live, and I typically forget that some of these shirts have a tendency to ride down. But now you're reproducing with that spirit. Because now you're outside the will of God, presenting yourself as a sacrifice. You're laying yourself on an altar. That's what fornication is. You're laying yourself on an altar, making a sacrifice for what you want. What you want? You want Tyrone's affirmation. You want Tyrone's love. And you want Tyrone to stick with you. So rather than trusting God, you went into a system that was ungodly. So now in that system, the reproduction process is you sinning, and now you're sowing seeds in this system. And those seeds will grow up and call you money. Rebellion will grow up because you went over there and you rebellion. All these things will grow up and they will manifest themselves, materialize themselves in your life, in your relationship with Tyrone. So now Tyrone out in these streets cheating on you. He out here doing his thing. Or maybe he's not cheating. Maybe he's not cheating. But he's not cheating in body, but he's cheating in his heart. He doesn't fully cover you. You're in a home where you don't have a covering. You're sitting there in a relationship with this man and he's really distant. He's not happy. Or maybe he's not a provider. God said a man who doesn't provide for his home is worse than an infidel. An infidel is an unbeliever. Now he's not providing. And you're going through some stuff. You know why? Mirrored reflection of what you experienced. This is how rejection got in. Now, let's talk about this real quick, because I got a lot of stuff to really give you guys, and I can't give it all to you tonight. I've shared this with you before. We know how rejection got into our bloodline. Now, for African Americans, you guys, we dealt with major rejection. And you can still see the manifestation in a lot of us. We still have a whole lot of healing to do. We typically deal with rejection in the orphan spirit really, really badly. And that's stuff that's generational. And these are things that it's not that, we're bad people. It's just that, a lot of people are traumatized. And consequently, many of us are coming from traumatized families. And you got to understand that slavery and segregation and Jim Crow laws are not too far removed. Slavery was abolished in 1865. All the way up to 1960, there were still slaves in the United States of America. All the way up to 1960. Racism is still very heavy in the United States. So there's a lot of trauma with us. It's a lot of trauma. And I don't think we acknowledge it like we should acknowledge it, because a lot of times when we want to heal, then there's another killing, there's another this, or there's another that happening in the earth. But you can see the trauma. There's a lot of trauma with a lot of African Americans. Consequently, a lot of African American men are still reproducing rejection and abandonment. Y'all want to talk about it, or you want me to move on to the points? A lot of African American men leave their children fatherless. Not all, a lot of them leave their children fatherless because of slavery. If you don't know what happened, they had a male called a stud. The stud is very similar to the animal kingdom. Amazingly enough, I lived in Florida for 5 years, and I lived in front of a lake. So it was like I lived in a zoo, honestly. And to me, it was beautiful because I'm an animal lover, what have you. But many times, you have, what was I about to talk about? Or slavery. I'm talking about Tyrone. Well, talking about in slavery, they had what was called a stud. Okay, so going back to the animals. I got a chance to see female, especially ducks and stuff like that. What they would do, like female Muscovy duck is a prime example. If you've never seen a Muscovy duck, they got this little red mask on their face. They used to be in front of my house, all my apartment. It was beautiful. But there's some really weird looking ducks, so have you. But female Muscovy ducks have evolved, as they say, to their vaginas have evolved to Okay, so most animals are like this. In order to survive, they reject the weak male. So, there are a lot of territorial wars between male animals. And so you'll see two male animals out there fighting. It's just territory. It's a territorial war. The weaker one, and it's basically for one to establish dominion or what have you. And the weaker one is either going to get killed or driven off of that property, that territory, or what have you. Females, typically, whenever there's a rejected male, a weak male, they will not mate with him, not intentionally. They will not mate with him because instinctively they understand that a weak male will have weak children. And so, in order to increase survival, they're not doing it because they're not doing it like we do it. Like, I want a weak man. I want this dude over here. No, animals are really just trying to survive. So to increase their survival, the Muscovy duck is a prime example of a Muscovy duck. A female Muscovy duck will not mate with a weak male Muscovy duck. And typically the weak males they're kind of loners. They've been kind of cast out or what have you. Now Muscovies are individual, they typically are kind of individuals as it is. However, some of the weaker ones, they'll go ahead and submit to another male and they'll, be a part of his tribe, but they're still considered to be weak males and they can't breed with the females. I remember seeing a tribe of Muscovy ducks, and one of the males, when the main male wasn't around, he was trying to mate with a female, and I saw the main male, and they can barely fly because they're so heavy. They like turkey. We call them turkey ducks, but they would fly. I saw him flying, to come and attack that male, and of course they would get cast out of the tribe. But female Muscovy ducks have developed this or evolved to where they can actually twist their vaginas to keep a male from penetrating them, to keep from being from copulation. So the male will be on her back trying to get in, but she done twisted her vagina to keep him from copulating with her. And consequently, sometimes they get killed by the male because the male is dipping their head in the water and stuff like that. I remember I got a little too passionate about that one time, throwing sticks at the male. Get over her! No, I'm kidding. I did that, but I did think about it. But I'm just joking. I never threw a stick at him. I did yell at him. I'm like, oh, get off the donkey! Get off the donkey! But there's nothing you can do about it. It's nature. But that's what they did. They try to get with the stronger males in order to survive. What was I telling y'all that for? It'll come back around. We'll go into something else. So demons, they get their passports basically by getting into you through rejection. They get their passports, and the goal is for them. Yeah, I'm sorry, y'all. Okay, stud. Thank you. Stud. All right. So that's what happened to, thank you. To African American, a lot of males. The stud was the strong one. So weak African American males were not necessarily breeded. They were considered weak. They, like a little bird chest, little Tyrone, little weak over there. They didn't try to reproduce him or what have you. Now he probably did get him some, but they weren't trying to reproduce him intentionally. A lot of times they would have a stud. A stud was typically a very strong African man, very strong, and he out there, he does his job and what have you. And so what they would do is they would pay, somebody to use their male, to have a baby with a female, and the hopes was that the female would get pregnant with a male child, because then that male child could be sold on the market or what have you. And after the stud, stayed there a little while, and he got the female pregnant, he was removed, not just from the female's life, but from that child's life. He was removed, and so the children grew up fatherless. And if they had little girls, sometimes they kept them. And then there were other times where they had children that were weak. Some of the children were used as alligator bait. That's history. I don't want to go into that. But that's what they did. You had the stud that was removed. So consequently, in the African American community, you do see a lot of men who that curse is still on them. And it's not the entirety of the African American community. So don't get me wrong. I don't want to get no emails. I'm talking about we still see this. It's very prevalent. There are some guys that can be in a relationship kind of like a stud. They can only be in a relationship for so long. And once they've had, after they reach a point where they don't know what else to do, because that's all it is. Anytime you come to an end of one season, you need more revelation and information to go into the next season. And most of the time, that's where people turn around, because when you get to that space where you need more revelation and information, many times what you're going to do is you're supposed to get a counselor. You're supposed to have people in your life that can pour into you. And a lot of times people don't have that. A stronghold is like a leash that allows you to go so far. Once you get to that spot, that's why there are some guys, if you ask them, what's the longest relationship you've had? 3 years. Or you may come across a guy who's been in a relationship for 15 years, but he can't stay beyond that because that's how long his father did. That's a curse. It's a curse. It's a curse. And it's the spirit of rejection manifesting itself. And this is the reason why you don't entertain rejection in a relationship with a person. And you don't sit there and think, and you need to hear this. You never think that you can cure the spirit of rejection. You cannot cast it out by accepting somebody. That's I'm going all the way into my notes and I haven't even started them yet. You cannot cast rejection out by accepting a rejected person. You can't. It has to be bound, and that system has to be broken. They have to unlearn it, and they also have to learn discernment. If without discernment, you go right back in. See, when I got discernment, I have the gift of giving. I love to give. Without discernment, that gift got traumatized. Without discernment, I would give to everybody. With discernment, I'll give, but then I see how people respond to when I give. And if I give to somebody and they come over sucking their gold teeth, you got some more of that steak. And then they come back again. Yeah, this is a girl I'm telling you about with the steak. I ain't giving them nothing else. I will exercise my no, because my gift is an extension of my discernment. So if I give and then you have people that take, and they never really show gratitude, that gives me enough ammunition to say, yeah, I'm not giving it. Thank you, Big DB. God bless you. Otherwise, I end up feeling rejected. Otherwise, I end up getting traumatized in the area of the gifting. All right, so passports, real quick, and then I'm going to go into the pointers. What the enemy has done with many people over the years, and he continues to do to this very day, is you went through rejection with your parent. This is their spirit of rejection. It doesn't have a body to live in. It needs a body to live in. So it got in through your great grand. And it's been in their life. It's been in your life. And it has to constantly keep securing its position by making sure that it has kids. This is why the Bible says when the unclean spirit goes out of a man, he goes through dry places seeking rest. But finding none, it says, I will go back to the place from where I came. And then it goes out and it finds that place swept and garnished, and it goes and takes 7 spirits more wicked than itself. And the last state of that man is worse than the first. It go get some little kids with it. Matter of fact, it becomes a child. It said, no. I'm gonna get something more wicked. It's going to secure itself because they need houses. To a demon, you are nothing but real estate. They have no power. They have no ability. They're Paris Hilton cast down into a world where they can do nothing. They're cast into a small village in India. They have no money, no food, no nothing. And they're accustomed to all of these things. They're weak and they're tired. The Bible said they go looking for rest. They're tired and they're trying to find, I need to get in. And when they've been in a family generation after generation after generation after generation, they're territorial and passionate, and they call you home. You are real estate. You're real estate. They ain't gonna let go easy. Leave me alone does not work. That is not a deliverance principle. I'm tired does not work. Kill myself does not work. You kill yourself, then that devil will be right there saying, now, thank you. You'll open your eyes and you're going to see the first thing is that demon grabbing a hold of you. The enemy used rejection in your family. Many of our and I've been seeing this trend on TikTok where I've seen these videos where these women are coming out saying stop, for men to stop glamorizing grandma and great grandma and them, because, talking about how they stuck with their men. And they're talking about they had no choice. And that is the truth. They had no choice. Many of those women were straight up traumatized. And it's not because their men were bad people. The problem was, thank you, Sister Georgia, and God bless you. The problem was these people were just they were slaves, or they weren't too far removed from slavery. They were still dealing with trauma. They lacked information. They didn't have revelation to stay in a relationship. They didn't have revelation to stay in a relationship. And the only thing they knew, they needed that beginning feeling, that new car, that honeymoon phase. And they went and had it with another woman. And many of our grandparents, we talked about that. Many of our grandparents, they went into witchcraft trying to hold on to granddaddy. They were ignorant. They didn't know any better. And they unleashed a whole lot of crap that we see manifesting in our generation, including rejection. Our grandmothers went out there and they got a relationship. Then our mamas went and picked our daddies, and they didn't pick right. Right, trauma bonding. They didn't pick right. Or our daddies picked our moms and they didn't pick right. So now we're the product of that. Rejection. Rejection has managed to reproduce itself in your family for 2,000 years. And now here we are. Do you keep it or do you get rid of it? Do you keep it or do you get rid of it? Most people will elect to keep it. Not in word, but in deed. Because what happens is rejection teaches you the dark arts of holding on to people longer than what they would eventually stay. So Tyrone got a 3-year limit with women, but with rejection, if I learn, because of all the other guys that rejected me, I learned how to reject. I learned how to play the game. I'm able to keep him for 4 or 5 years. Because the other way, God's way, it requires me to become a foreigner to everything that I know and lose the people that are close to me and go into a world that is uncertain to me, and to walk alone and feel lonely and die to myself, die to my needs, die to my desires, and then allow God to bring the right people in my life. And there's no telling how long it's going to take him to do that. And we have not been taught to be patient. We haven't been taught to be patient. All right. Okay. Thank you, Sister Stephanie. God bless you. We have not been taught to be patient. So you know what we do? We reproduce with rejection. And then we turn around and we give our children over to rejection. We have babies with rejected men. Men have babies with rejected women. And we take our children and we essentially offer them as a sacrifice to rejection. So now they got to deal with the rejection that we didn't get rid of, because we weren't trying to go through all that. So now we end up having babies with men who run out of our children's lives. And now we sit up here trying to figure out, we get mad at him and we want to take him to court because we mad because he walked out. And we know what rejection is going to do to this child. We know what rejection is going to do to this little girl. But she see other little girls who are daddy's little girls. You know what it's going to do to a little boy who needs his father to find his identity. And he doesn't have that. Every time I'm scrolling TikTok and I see this guy, I never heard of him until his song came out, Lil Nas X. I see a little boy. I see a little boy that Satan had a blast with. Because what Satan, if he can remove the head, if he can remove the father, he can determine your identity. All he has to do is bring a specific demon into your life. All right, let me go ahead and get into this, because we'll be on here all night if I don't. All right, I'm going to give you a few facts about demons, and then I'm going to move into the characteristics of rejection. All right, and I'm going to try to move as fast as I potentially can or possibly can. Number one, demons need agreement. Rejection needs your agreement. So this is what happens, because it evolves and it continues to grow in a person's life. We've all said it, or we know people that have said it. we're out there in a relationship and then we get dumped, we get cheated on, we get hurt. Then we go out here and get a relationship with somebody else and he's promising, and you know what, we excited and we like, yeah. And then he does the same thing. Then we start saying things like, it's all right. They don't understand nothing about these men out here. That's why I do to them what they do to me. You think you'd have made it when you start talking like that because your heart has finally got hard and you finally got stiff in the heart. And so now you numb. Numb is a sign that, you know what, you're dead to something, but you're not dead to love. You're not dead. You're not dead to what you need to die to. You're dead to love. You're dead to all those other things. So you start getting into relationships and you give a guy so much of yourself. It's not enough to hold a true godly relationship. It's not enough, because what you do, you're setting yourself up to protect yourself. And so that's why you end up going from one relationship to the next. But demons need agreement. They need you to confess that, you know what, these men out here, ain't nobody trying to be faithful. Or you have women saying that all men cheat, stuff like that. Those are unclean spirits that have gotten into that person. And now that person, when they open their mouth, they're showing that they are in agreement with that spirit. Consequently, they will reproduce what's on that agreement, whatever it is that they agree with. So number two is something I thought was necessary for me to put on here. Thank you, Sister Linda. God bless you. Something I thought was necessary for me to put on here. That's demons cannot love anybody. Demons cannot love anybody. You may say, I think anybody knows that. That was kind of dumb for you to put that on. Why would you even say that? Because there are people out there, and I know folks in my family. I know people who brag about having demons. They laugh about it because sometimes a demon comes with benefits. It's funny. A demon will cause chaos in your life, when you turn your head, and then when you turn back, the demon will clean up that chaos. They make themselves look like heroes in your life. So if you got a coworker on your job and your coworker is, behaving oddly and doing all kinds of crazy stuff or what have you, and you got a demon of rage in you, and you're the sweetest person in the world, and you're just really docile. Hi, how are you? Crazy, all I know. But you just, hi, how are you? And that person keep pushing your buttons. Then all of a sudden you become a whole other person. I told you to leave me alone. No, now everybody holding you back, and they're like, I didn't expect her. She sounded like Snow White about 5 minutes ago. But why she sound like this? Thank you, Sister Vanyetta. God bless you. Why did she sound like, I told you, I said leave me alone. But no, you wanted to keep on. And everybody, they see you got an ink pen in your hand, and you over there trying to get to the female. They don't fire you on the job because, they sit up there and they just give you a write-up. Now, people go to talking, they're like, man, you flipped out. Man, I didn't know you were like that. You in love with your demon. Because now you sitting up there thinking that they protect you. Folks can call it a demon, what have you. I mean, you start saying stuff like, girl, I'm telling you, when I get mad, I'll give you an example of somebody who loved their demon. Beyonce. She brags about Sasha Fierce. People fall in love with this because what that demon does is it gives her a false sense of confidence. So when she gets on the stage, she's able to blank out and go into all these wild movements and stuff. And when she looks, she's like, wow, thank you. Thank you. That's what unclean spirits do. And sometimes people fall in love with them, or they fall in love with the benefits or what they perceive to be the benefits of having a spirit. But one of the things I found about unclean spirits is they have no inheritance. They have no access to wealth but through you. So the power, the wisdom, the knowledge, the wealth, and everything they give you already belong to you. They just show you another way to get it. I ain't going there because y'all ain't ready for that. A demon will teach you how to reach into your future and rob your future self, rob your children generation after generation, and bring all of that stuff to yourself right now and sit it on your lap and eat it up and not be happy because God's not in it. God removed himself from it. So now you got all this stuff and you miserable with it. But you know what? You feel content because you know you ain't gonna get evicted. He'll take you and get you to take all of that stuff into yourself, not realizing that you didn't get blessed. You literally stole from your future. A good man leaves an inheritance for his children and his children's children. You stole from your future. You stole from your future children. You stole from your future self. So 10 years from now, you're still paying off debt that you went and got back then that you really didn't need. But you end up loving that demon because you know what? That's why a lot of times it's hard to deliver some people that get into witchcraft, because they end up seeing benefits of having unclean spirits, not realizing that the next 2 generations or the next 7 generations, there are going to be little boys that are going to die, because that's what's in the contract. There's small print on the contract. They don't understand that. All they know is the benefits that they're getting right now, not realizing they're robbing all of these. They're robbing themselves, and they're robbing all of these generations of what is theirs, what already belongs to them. And for them, it's all about power. It's all about control. It's all about self-medication or self-medication rather than getting healing. All right, I don't want to stay there. Number 3, demons have to be fed in accordance with who they are or what they are. So the demon of rejection has to be fed rejection. The demon of rejection has to reproduce itself through rejection, through poor choices. So it's going to always want you to reject people, and it's going to always want people to reject you. So consequently, it sets you up for failure. So what happens is it creates a stronghold in the mind. So you limit yourself to people who are broken, because that's who you can relate to. But these people only have remember I talked about the attention span. Some people can only watch a video for 15 minutes. That's the stronghold on their minds. And so that's how some people are. They have a stronghold. They can only be in a relationship for 5 years or 15 years. So you end up going through rejection. So rejection, what it does is it feeds itself by constantly having you wanting to be a part of things that God didn't call you to be a part of. So you go into your job and, maybe let's start back in elementary. You were trying to hang out with the popular girls, but they rejected you. And God didn't want you to hang out with them because they were climaxing in high school, and God had something greater for you. And you know what? 30 years later, some of you still haven't healed from that. You didn't even realize it was divine of God, because he knew these girls were climaxing. They weren't going to go anywhere. They were going to spend the next 30 years looking at their prom pictures, talking about when they had a snatched waist and a pretty face. But God didn't allow you to be accepted. He didn't allow you. He allowed your leadership to show. And so the queen bee realized she wasn't going to be able to control you. You wouldn't be a drone. And so she didn't let you in. So they got to be fed in accordance with what or who they are. The spirit of hatred has to be fed hate. The spirit of bitterness has to be fed bitterness. The spirit of fornication obviously needs illegal sex. This is the reason why whenever you get into fornication, that person, that spirit, when they get married, that spirit is still there, and it does not want anything legal. Once you legalize sex, once you get married and the sex is legal, that demon still wants something that's illegal. So consequently, it's going to go look for fornication, because it still falls under porneia, which is the Greek word for sexual immorality. It still falls under that. So that demon is no longer getting fed. Once that man marries you, once that woman marries you, that demon is no longer getting fed by that person. So even though y'all can have great chemistry, amazing sex together, that person is still going to have an appetite for the illegal thing, for the profane thing. That was the real appetite. It wasn't love. It was just an appetite for the profane thing. And so that person is going to go out there and do what they did with you. All right. So they got to be fed in accordance with what they are. So rejection has to have rejection. So rejection is going to set you up through a stronghold in your mind, meaning limited revelation, is going to set you up to constantly keep getting in relationships where you will experience rejection, and then you will constantly start manufacturing rejection. So you'll start rejecting people before they reject you. You'll start doing things, and a lot of times what people do is they master those seasons rather than coming out of them. So they become the masterminds or master manipulators of those seasons, and so they learn how to handle people, and that's never God's will, is for you to learn how to handle people. All right, let's move on. Demons have to be fed consistently. Remember, God said, submit yourself to God and resist the devil and he will flee from you. That's a deliverance principle. So a demon of rejection has to be fed consistently. So if you got rejection in your life, that demon is going to look to be fed consistently. How does it do that? Thank you, Sister Brandy. God bless you. How does it do that? What it's going to do is cause you to be rejected on your job, cause you to be rejected. Anybody that got that demon is going to cause you to experience rejection. And sometimes it's going to be actual rejection. In many cases, it's going to be perceived rejection. See, it's not the event that feeds the demon. It's the thought that does. It's the hurt that feeds the demon. It feeds off of your pain. It feeds off of those thoughts that you have. You know what? One of these days I'm going to be successful, and they're going to wish they had it accepted me. That's okay. They can be all funny acting right now. They want to be all this and they want to be all that. But you know what's one thing? Whenever I make it in this life, watch me. That's rejection manifesting itself. And so that spirit, what it has to do, many times when a person suffers the rejection, they deal with a lot of perceived rejection. It's not real. It's not actual. I'm telling you from a person who has fought that demon all of my life. It's many cases is perceived rejection. Perceived rejection. So you may get into a room with somebody who's just an oddball, and you think they're rejecting you because they're not talking to you, but it's not that. They're not rejecting you. They're just odd. And in other cases, you may be in a room with a person who is actually rejecting you, but that shouldn't affect you like that. It shouldn't affect you like that, but you internalize it. And when you start internalizing, God said, vengeance is his. He said, give no place to the devil. He said, don't let the sun set on your wrath. You start giving place to the devil because you start internalizing it. You keep meditating on it again and again and again and again and again. The goal of meditation is to get something from your head into your heart. So it gets into your heart and it becomes a heart condition. God said, guard your heart, for out of it pours the issues of life. But the girl at the water cooler, she went, filled her water up, and she walked out of there and she didn't speak. And you notice that she's always like that. And you know what? You end up feeling rejected by her, because then that same girl, and maybe she is rejecting you. Maybe she don't like you. And she, many times, maybe she starts, intentionally, because sometimes people are very strategic. Women know I love being a woman, because one of the things I love is psychology. But sometimes you can see a person who's intentionally rejecting you. They want you to know that they're rejecting you, so they passively do things to let you know. So she may walk past you, and she constantly does that, but then she'll walk and talk to somebody else. Hey, girl, you look so nice. I like your hair. You're like, my hair is just like hers. We got the same braids and everything. What the heck? Oh, that shirt, that is so pretty on you. I just wore that shirt last week, and she, and so it's a little shade up in there or what have you, and you're just like, dang it. You're not supposed to internalize that. What you're supposed to do is take that and realize that she's bound. You have to understand the language of bondage. I can't see y'all comments because I'm looking at, let me get over here and see if I can get your comments. Did y'all hear? Thank you, Sister Maya. God bless you. Write it in the chat room. You have to understand the language of bondage. You have to understand the language of bondage. When she speaks like a slave, that's God allowing you to hear, so that you understand why he's not allowing you to walk with her. I gotta let it marinate. Because if I move too fast, you're not gonna get it. If I move too fast, make sure you're liking and sharing this. Do me a favor, those of you who are coming in, like and share. You have to understand the language of the bound. She's not speaking the language of a free woman. She's speaking the language of a bound woman. I remember I was working at this company, and there was this lady that, professed to be a Christian. And she was very adamant about it. I'm talking about and I was Christian, but I was still a babe, still more worldly than anything. But I'm going to tell you, I remember this woman used to talk about God and hallelujah. But baby, she was the biggest gossiper I had ever met in my entire life. I ain't never met nobody on that level. Well, no, I got an auntie on her level. I'm talking about high level gossip. High level was real messy with it. Would dog you out with her words, gossip about you. And then if she finds you somewhere licking your wounds, she'll say, don't worry about what people say. God got you. It's the language of a slave. That was not the language of the kingdom. It's not the language of the kingdom. It's the language of a slave. And when you hear the language, what God wants you to do is he wants you to say, oh, okay, now I get it. You didn't want me to be friends with her. You don't want me to be in a relationship with him because they are still slaves. I get it. I'm supposed to hold a different position. I'm supposed to hold a different position. But now I'm mad because she didn't speak to me. No, you're not supposed to do that. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Let's move on. They got to be fed consistently. If you got a spirit of rejection, it's going to make sure that you're repeatedly rejected. And let me say this, as a Christian, you're going to deal with repeated rejection. Jesus said, if they rejected me, they're going to reject you. So you're going to deal with it, or what have you. So let's move on. Demons partner with other spirits to accomplish their agenda. So rejection is going to partner with a lot of spirits, and I'll deal with that a little bit later, to make sure that their agenda is accomplished. So we'll move from there, because I feel like we'll deal with that later. Number 6, demons build systems called strongholds. This is the reason why when they get cast out, you still deal with bondage issues. So it's no different than when Apostle Paul and them had been beaten and arrested and tossed into prison. And then when they heard that they were Romans, these men come and they tried to let them out privately. And they said, we ain't coming out till y'all come and give us an apology. Meaning the jail cell is open, but you still choose to stay bound. You know how many Christians are like that? The cell is open. Jesus opened the cell, but they still sitting there in depression. They still sitting there in comparison. They still sitting there in fornication. They're still sitting there in anger. They're still sitting there. Opportunity. Whom the Lord has set free is free indeed. Whom God has set free is free indeed. The opportunity is there. They are truly free. But it's a choice now to be bound. That's what gets you in trouble. It's a choice. It's a choice. So they're going to partner with other spirits to accomplish their agenda. They're going to partner with other spirits to accomplish their agenda. And again, how does a spirit get into a person's life or stay into a person's life? It appeals to your dissatisfaction. And if there is no dissatisfaction, it creates it. It shows you something that you don't have. Maybe it's a man. So somebody, somebody in your family, you go around to a family event and you look over there and they go Leroy and your cousin, and they send up over there, Leroy and your cousin, Tasha. And they over there and Leroy gets on his knees and he proposed to Tasha. And you envy that. For what? Tasha and Leroy have been clapping it up for 2 or 3 years. They done got 5 kids together. He finally got on his knees because it's cheaper to keep them. But you mad. You mad. And you know what? When you envy unrighteous things, then you do unrighteous things to yourself. And even though you've been going to church and all that, you start getting mad. I've been doing all this, I've been abstinent and everything. So then you go out there and get yourself in a relationship. And you're going to reproduce that. You're going to reproduce that. So you end up going and getting into another relationship, and then you have to give your sin offering and all that other stuff. And you end up having Tasha's story, a story that God didn't intend for you to have. So let's move from there. Number 6, demons build systems called strongholds. Okay, that's where we were. Demons build systems called strongholds. And so what happens is, to build that stronghold, the demon makes sure that if it's ever cast out, that you essentially still need it. Okay, I'll give it to you this way. If you're ever with a narcissist and the narcissist is making more money than you, let's say that you're making $15,000 a year. That's very low. And the narcissist is making $50,000 a year. Well, the narcissist will insist on getting thank you, Big Diva, God bless you. The narcissist will insist on getting, let's say, $100,000 home. Well, not $100,000. If somebody making $50,000, they're going to want a $200,000 home. So he's going to want a $200,000 home, maybe $250,000 home. All right. Your mortgage in a $250,000 home probably is going to get, no, $50,000. Yeah, I'm trying to see. But let's just say a $300,000 home. You get into a $300,000 home. Thank you, brother Michael. God bless you. You get into a $300,000 home. You can't afford that house. You can't afford that house. So now you're in this house. All of your stuff, everything is in that house. You're making $15,000 a year. Tyrone get to do what he wants. He gets to do what he wants, because in that, Tyrone knows that you can't live without him. If you cast him out, because, if your name was on the house as well, and y'all start going through a divorce and what have you, you can potentially cast him out. You cast him out of the house. Now there's a system called a bunch of bills that are there. That's a system. So now Tyrone had bought you a car, but he didn't pay it off. He didn't bought you a car, financed you a car, because it's not his, it's not bought. But you got a $50,000 car parked out in your driveway. You got this $300,000 home. Your light bill or electric bill every month is about $600 a month, which is high. You got all of these bills coming in, and all you making is $15,000 a year. You can't survive in that house. You're not gonna be able to keep that stuff. So now you got to make a decision. Either you let Tyrone come back and keep your stuff, or you walk out of that house and you got to let it all go and start over. Do you understand why people stay bound now? Because letting Satan go means losing everything, every benefit that he's given them. This is why people come for deliverance, but they don't want to get a book. They want this. I cast out Leviathan. They want that. But when you say, hey, get this book, go to this church, they don't want that. They don't want that. Because in order for them to fully complete all of this stuff, it's going to deal with the strongholds of their mind. They rely on those systems. They just want the demon cast out. They want the house that the devil built, but they just don't want him to live there. Are y'all hearing me? They want the house that the devil built. They just don't want him living there. They just don't want him living there. But they can't afford to stay there without him. Let's explain why. If you're using the devil's systems, let's say you walking around and you got the Jezebel spirit cast out of you, yet you still using control and manipulation and domination and all these things to accomplish your agenda. It's only a matter of time before you come across a Jezebel that really don't have much of anything to lose. So, and that Jezebel may threaten some aspect of your stability. And so now you find yourself trying to figure things out. Now you're a Christian, but you still didn't want to get completely delivered. You're trying to figure stuff out, and you don't trust prayer like that, because that's the reason why you didn't give up that system. You wanted to get rid of the demon, but you kept the system. You kept the stronghold. You kept the ways of that demon. That spirit knows how to get back in, because now you come in contact with a Jezebel on your job, and now she's threatening. Now she got you in the headlock, in a sense. You're about to lose your job, or your job is under threat, and then at the same time, they're probably looking at arresting you. Whatever happened, or it could be some guy. You may turn to the church, and then you feel like the church can't do anything, because you know what? God removed himself from that situation, because if you're using an ungodly system, God's not going to bless it. So it's a cursed system. So you can't go to church and pray for this situation to be made better, because if you pray about it, God may destroy the system, which means, you got to start over from scratch. So what happens is, you call your Jezebelic auntie. You ain't talked to her in 3 years, but you call her because you know she gonna know what to do. I've heard Christians who've gotten delivered from Jezebel brag about having Jezebels in their family. Because I call my auntie, girl, she ain't delivered. And they'll call that Jezebelic aunt, and they'll tell that Jezebelic aunt, yeah, this lady on my job, auntie. And your aunt maybe work for the company and she's in a higher up position. What's her name? Oh, don't worry. I got her. Oh, I bet you I got her. What's that called? Agreement. Vengeance belongs to me, said the Lord. That's called agreement. You go right back into agreement with Jezebel. Unclean spirit goes out of a man and goes looking for rest, but finding none. It says, I will go back to the place from where I came. Comes and finds that place swept. What goes to dry places, seeking rest. It means it has nothing to drink. It has nothing to feed itself. It said, I'm going back home where I can eat. And you start going through some stuff with that lady on your job. Then you call them goons. You call them folks. Because when you're going through some stuff, the devil will put people on your mind. I got a crazy cousin, dude don't care about going to prison. And you pick that spirit right back up, because you couldn't rely on God, because God wasn't trying to help you in that situation, because it was an issue. That's called a stronghold. As long as the stronghold is there, you might as well keep the demon. Now, I'm not telling you to keep the demon. I'm telling you to get deliverance, and you got to come against the stronghold. Otherwise, that demon comes back, and when it comes back, it brings 7 spirits more wicked than itself, and the last state of that man is worse than the first. You end up crazy as 3 fireflies in a windstorm. You end up crazy because you constantly keep picking them back up. Now you done used auntie and she didn't put the girl in place. The girl done lost her job and everything. But you now trust that sister. You now feel a sense of obligation. Thank you, Sister Ashley. God bless you. You feel a sense of obligation to that auntie. You feel a sense of obligation. And you start feeling the power. I got my auntie. Don't nobody mess with me. That's how people get bound again. Let's go ahead and move on. 7, which is the last one. And these are just a few pointers about demons. Demons are powerless without a body to operate in. They need a body. This is where we're talking about passports. And so what they need in order to get a green card. And remember I said we should have called it a green card, demonic green cards. But in order to get a green card, they need to marry you. That means agreement. That's all marriage is just an agreement between two people. Or two spirits. They need to marry you. So they got to get you to agree with them. And they could have came in through your life, through family members, but you still are in agreement with you because that's all you've been taught. And so in order for them to fall out of agreement with them, you have to be taught something different. And you have to go and lean to that agreement and destroy the other agreement. But they are powerless without a body to operate in. So consequently, they are very passionate and desperate and obsessive. They won't leave you alone. They're really thinking, I'm trying to figure the word out, but they won't leave you alone. They'll keep coming back or trying to come back because they need a body to operate in. All right, I'm going to give you a few characteristics of rejection, and then I'm going to let y'all go to bed. And we're going to do a part 2 to the message because I think that me trying to do everything in part 1 will make this video incredibly long. I do have quite a few characteristics of rejection, but I'm going to speed walk through them, and hopefully we'll get something from it. Number 1, fear of intimate relationships. Remember we talked about, in the African American community that's something that's prevalent. It's prevalent with a lot of African American men as well. A lot of times people can get so far in a relationship, but as soon as you start getting too close, it causes a level of fear in the person. Whenever they get too close in a relationship with you, it causes them to begin to panic. And so you have a lot of people that when they get into a relationship, as soon as they feel like they're starting to love you or they're starting to have some type of strong feelings towards you, they will sabotage the relationship. They'll go and do something. And that's why you'll find that, there are some people out there, you can be in a relationship with them and it's like everything is perfect. Raise your hand if you do that. Thank you, KT. God bless you. But if you've experienced having a relationship with somebody and it seemed perfect, y'all didn't have no arguments, no nothing, and then the person ghosted you. People experience that type of stuff, and it's because in many cases they were probably in a relationship with somebody else then, and a lot of cases the problem was they would get scared. So whenever the relationship, thank you for being honest, whenever the relationship got too close, when it got so far in their heart, and it's not even just romantic relationship, people do that in friendships, people do that in churches. There are people that go into a church and as soon as they start feeling like they're accepted by the church, they sabotage it because their fear is if you accept me, thank you also, Sister Lavanya, God bless you. If you accept me and then you discard me, it's going to really hurt. And I don't know if I can handle that pain. I don't know if I can handle it. The last time, stuff like that happened to me, it really hurt. It broke my spirit. It took me a couple of years to get over it. And I don't want to experience that level of pain again. This is why it's so hard to deliver some people from rejection, because they won't sit still long enough to have that spirit addressed or to be educated about it. And that's why God raises up ministers like me to come virtually into your home to help you understand what you're dealing with. So whenever you do get out of your home and you go into a physical structure, you're able to understand that, okay, this is what Tiffany was talking about. This is that feeling like, I'm starting to feel accepted. I feel like everybody's loving me up in here. Why do I want to run? Or you may feel rejected. Okay, why do I want to run? And then you understand that that's rejection. All right, let's move on. That's fear of intimate relationships. Number 2, fear of rejection is obvious one. Rejection is a demon within itself, and then there is a fear of rejection. There's a fear of rejection. People who have the fear of rejection, which is a demon within itself, are constantly like, if you partner with somebody, become friends with somebody, or have somebody who seems to be too good to be true in your life, you're always afraid that you're going to lose that person. You always think it's just a matter of time. They're going to discover my imperfections. They're going to discover they're going to discover all of these things about me. They're going to discover that maybe I'm scared. They're going to discover things, and then they're going to walk away from me. And so whenever you deal with the fear of rejection, one of the things that you do is you keep people from getting close to you. You do things to keep them from getting too close, because in your mind, they're going to leave anyhow. They're going to walk away from me anyhow. So there's no sense in me letting them get close where they can hurt me. Let me just go ahead and keep them on the outskirts. And then you pushing them away or keeping them on the outskirts will cause them to walk away. And when they do, that kind of serves as affirmation or confirmation to you. Whereas you then say, see, I told you. That's why I don't let people get close to me like that. Remember, I'm teaching you not just from what I've learned, but I'm teaching you from a person who has wrestled with that. You won't let people get too close because of a fear of them rejecting you. And there's this thing they call imposter syndrome. You're afraid that they're going to discover your infallibilities. You're afraid that they're going to discover the fact that you cry yourself to sleep some nights, or maybe you're afraid of this or what have you, and you have a persona that you want everybody to believe, and you're afraid that if they don't see that persona, you got to let them see that part of you. But if they see another end, then they're going to reject you. They're going to reject you. So you deal with the fear of rejection. Number 3, you think that no one can relate to you or understand you. That's the greatest lie of the enemy, is to make you feel unrelatable. Consequently, you don't talk about your issues because you think that people are going to judge you and they're not going to be able to relate to you anyhow. Number 4, obsession. These are characteristics of rejection. Obsession and stalking. There are people that they cannot let go after a relationship ends. And it could be a relationship that was just 2 weeks in length. The worst stalker, I've had stalkers in my life because I was terrible and I needed some major deliverance. The worst stalker I've ever had in my life was a guy I dated for 2 weeks. Never had sex with him. Never even kissed a dude. Worst stalker in my life I've had. That dude stalked me for 2 years. He stalked me out behind for, I'm thinking it wasn't more than 2 years. Worst stalker I've ever had in my life. Met this dude. I broke the rules because I had a rule that I wouldn't date nobody from the club. I would flirt with a guy, snatch him onto the dance floor, dance with him and all that other stuff. I would snatch a guy by his collar onto the dance floor, dance with him, all of that, and abandon him on the dance floor once I was done with him. Just walk off and abandon him on the dance floor. Go back over with my friends or what have you. But that I broke a rule. Met a guy in the club, exchanged numbers with him, the whole 9. And the signs of rejection, which is not on my list, but one of the signs is that you move too fast. I don't know if it's on my list, but you move. I think it is on the list. But he introduced me to his family way too fast. It was a red flag to me. Because those type of things scared me, because I wasn't into relationships like that. I wanted to be married, but I think I was kind of cognizant of the fact that, if I got with certain guys, I knew that was not going to end in marriage. I didn't want it to end in marriage. But yeah, when I got rid of him for trying to fight me in a club. He thought he needed to tame me. And so I got rid of him for trying to fight me in a club. And I hate to say got rid of, but I'm just saying he was crazy. But that guy stalked me for 2 years. Even had a girl he got in a relationship with. It was just weird. I don't want to go into that. It was just weird. But obsession and stalking, that's a sign of rejection. I know people, and many of you have a problem and you don't even realize it's stalking because you still stalk your ex's social media pages. Y'all been broken up for some time. When you're fresh out of a relationship, that's understandable because you're still hurting. And it's hard for your heart to conceptualize the fact that you're no longer in a relationship with that person. And so you still monitor them. You act as a monitoring spirit in that person's life. But after a while, that should not be happening. After a while, even if you're curious about the person, you should have enough self-discipline to know that this is only causing my wound to not heal. And so let me stay off of this man's profile. Let me stay off of his lover's profile. Let me just kind of stay off so that I can get the healing that I need. But whenever you deal with rejection, you're not going to stay off because what you're doing is you're feeding. Remember, I told you rejection has to be fed. So every time you're doing it, that spirit will tempt you. I wonder what Leroy's doing. I bet you he with that girl. I wonder. I want to see who be liking his statuses. It puts all of these questions in your mind. This is why it's always good to stay busy. Because if you're not busy, then you got too much time to just meditate on silly stuff. The old folks used to say idle mind is the devil's workshop, and I found that to be really true. But you find yourself in the middle of the night, you ain't doing nothing. Then Leroy come up in your brain. I wonder what Leroy. He's still with that girl that he left me for. Unless she done got fat. Oh my goodness. Looks like a walrus to me. Should have stuck with me. Let me look at her profile too. Go ahead and look at her profile. Oh, she's pregnant. She ain't just fat, she's pregnant. Oh, but she didn't have that baby. Why she look like that? I bet he cheating. Look at all these girls liking his statuses. You over there, what you're doing is you're feeding rejection. You're feeding the spirit of rejection. Because when you come off of that profile, you rejected or you're experiencing rejection all over again. That's what the spirit of rejection does. It has to be fed. It'll keep you going back into your past instead of moving on into your future. But that's obsession. You are obsessing over the person. You ain't got to text them, you ain't got to call them, but you're still obsessing over the person. You're still stalking the person. And that should not be. That should not be. That's a sign of an unhealthy heart. Number 5, fear of being blessed. It's a sign of rejection. Something too good to be true, you're going to ghost it. Things start going well in your life, you run. People try to bless you. Oh no, Sister Tiffany, no. You know why? Because you're afraid that if I bless you, that I'm going to get mad at you and walk out of your life. So you feel like you have to prove yourself to me that I'm really truly your friend and you don't have to do anything for me. That's rejection. You're not proving yourself to be a friend. The way you prove yourself to be a friend is also to give and receive. You give is you try to outgive me. That's how you do in a friendship. If I'm a giver, the way that you win the heart of a giver is you try to outgive the giver. That's all you got to do. Outgive the giver. And it ain't got to be materialistic. It ain't got to be money. Sometimes it can be compliments. Sometimes it can be hugs. But you try to outgive the giver. But if you're afraid of people blessing you, and every time things start going well, somebody tries to do something nice for you, and you get suspicious and you begin to question it, that's rejection. Because in your mind, you are equating that to something bad about to transition. Whereas a person is trying to do something good for you, you're equating that as something bad. As something bad. Let's move on. Number 6, constantly sabotaging relationships. Constantly sabotaging relationships, be they good, not so healthy, what have you. So especially a relationship when it's good, let's say you're a guy and your girl, she comes and she does something really nice for your birthday, and she makes you feel really accepted and loved and appreciated. And then you start feeling like she too good for me. And I know I'm going to hurt her. And while it's admirable that you would get out of a relationship with somebody that you know you're going to hurt, the reality is it's just rejection. It's just rejection. And so you know that you're going to hurt her, and at some point she's going to reject you. So you reject her before she can reject you. So you sabotage your relationship. How do you do it? Maybe you cheat. If you don't cheat, maybe you ghost her. Maybe if you don't ghost her, you just become very distant. So you kind of leave her emotionally abandoned. So while she's with you, every time you're hanging out, she's just like this. She's like, what's wrong with you? I said, ain't nothing wrong with me. You acting weird. Is this what you want? So you begin to sabotage your relationship because you don't feel like you're good enough for the relationship. Ironically enough, people who do that kind of stuff, they will get in a relationship with somebody who's really dark and broken. And they'll stay in a relationship with that person because they know that they can match each other's pain. They're going to give each other a certain measure of pain or what have you. So they feel like that woman can handle them. Whereas, the other female could not handle them. All right, let's move on. Number 8, you quit everything whenever pressure or offense enters the equation. You quick to quit. I've had, anytime I have a mentorship or anything that I'm hosting, I always have students that are quit. They're going to quit. And that's the frustrating part. The good thing is the majority of students stick around. But there are some students who they cannot take correction, which is one of the pointers, and we'll get to that. But they cannot, not take correction. They'll do wrong things, but you're not allowed to correct them. And correction to them is a bad thing. They feel like you are rejecting them, which is another pointer. So I don't want to go into that. But what they do is they'll end up quitting. And these are people that go into churches, and as soon as they feel corrected, they will leave a church. And that's the reason why many times, if you ever wonder why, you can talk about like God, on this job, these people don't like me, they treat me like crap, and then God will make you sit there. And you're like, I don't understand why God's not allowing me to leave. He's not opening doors for me to leave. The thing about it is God wants you to master yourself in that environment, not master the people. And this is why people stay on these jobs for 5 years when God only wanted them to be there for a year. God wanted you to learn and master yourself in the midst of that, to the point where you die to yourself, where it no longer hurts anymore. And when it no longer hurts anymore, it has no more power over you. And when it has no power over you, you then begin to have power over it. But if all you do is quit every time pressure comes, then you're going to sabotage healthy, good, godly covenant relationships, because there's no such thing as a relationship without any type of drama. When I say drama, I'm not talking about toxicity. I'm talking about offense, misunderstandings. The way to get rid of misunderstandings is communication. And if I can be honest with you, a large number of people in the United States of America suffers through rejection or some level of rejection. Rejection comes on levels. They suffer through rejection on certain levels. And that's why it's so hard to communicate. People are scared. I say this to, some of my sisters in Christ now, especially the ones that we send text messages. I talk about how in the United States, our culture, when we send a text message to you, many times we send a happy face emoji. We do all of that kind of stuff, or even when we post to Facebook or any social media platform, we put hearts and smiley faces because of the rejection that is so commonplace in America. A lot of people will misinterpret what you're saying. They if you put an exclamation point or anything, you capitalize a word, anything that you do, they misunderstand it and they will internalize it the wrong way and they get offended. And so what we're doing is we've learned to serve offense. We've learned to bow down to rejection, how to not offend you. Because I can honestly say I had to recently tell myself to stop serving that, because I was always trying to make sure people don't misunderstand, because I know that I'm odd. I know that I don't necessarily, I'm an independent thinker. I'm not a person who agrees with the majority. So if you can go and have something about all men and you have a bunch of women, I'm not going to probably agree with that movement, because I'm going to look at it as imbalance and I'm going to see the foolishness in it. So I'm not a person that jumps on a bandwagon. I'm a person who's an independent thinker. And consequently, what I did was a lot of times I found myself just keeping quiet, because I'm like, I don't want to offend people, because I discovered that a lot of people don't know how to deal with independent thinkers. They take offense when you're dealing with rejection. They take offense to you having a thought that's opposite. And the beautiful thing is God said, come, let us reason together. And I'm going to tell you something. If you ever want to get the highest level of revelation, sit at a table with people who don't agree with you. Thank you, Sister Mitzi. God bless you. I'm talking about mature people where y'all can disagree without getting offended. Sit at a table. I love having conversations where when me and somebody else are not necessarily agreeing, but we're not arguing. And they're saying, Tiffany, I'm telling you, guys do it all the time. They can be like, hey man, these people, this particular team, the Mets, and the other person talking about Green Bay Packers. And I know I'm probably talking about two completely different sports. That's why I ain't want to go there. But I'm just saying, guys can sit up and they can do that and they can laugh about it. All our honesty, women, because we're super sensitive, in the United States, it is very hard. Please tell me I'm wrong. Very hard to come across women you can disagree with. Very hard. I mean, a woman has to reach a certain level of maturity before she even qualifies to be called a friend. That's why I don't call everybody friends nowadays. Before she can even understand what it means to be a friend, a lot of times women don't understand that. Because the minute you don't agree, they take it personal. They take it personal. That's the reason why a lot of times women, we can talk to men. I can have a male friend and I can talk to him all day long. I got brothers in Christ I can talk to, and I can honestly, we can disagree, and it's so respectful. It ain't offensive, ain't no manipulation or gaslighting. It's beautiful. Let me do that with some of my friends. Let me do that with a female. And I'm not saying, I'm talking about immature females. A lot of women never grow enough to mature. What ends up happening is the woman will sit there and gaslight you or get emotional. Well, anyhow, or deflect. See, Tim, that's my thing. That you always do that. You act like you know it all. No, sis, you do know. Thank you. Well, that's another one. You do know it's okay for somebody to disagree with you. I gotta get this in, y'all. I gotta get this in. Thank you, Sister Tiffany. God bless you. It's okay for somebody not to agree. It's not the end of a friendship. Matter of fact, hear this. It can make the friendship stronger. If I can sit at a table with you and say, I don't agree with your policies. I don't agree. And you say, okay, so tell me what you think. And I can tell you, we get wiser in that moment, because when we leave that table, we will find, in many cases, a way of agreement. We'll find common ground. I find that you're speaking from this angle and I'm speaking from that angle. But if we come at this angle, we can take the revelation that we got and marry it together, and we can create something powerful. But a lot of times, and it's not a thing, the only issue is because we're emotional. It's because we're emotional. And because we're emotional, and many times we deal with rejection, we take disagreement as rejection. So a lot of times when you have somebody like myself who's an independent thinker, we kind of keep our thoughts to ourselves. Because we know that if we open up and say, hey, I don't agree with that, we won't have no friends left. We won't have no friends left. Me, I just tell my friends everything I think. I'm sorry. I just tell them, don't run. Don't run. It makes a friendship so much stronger. It's okay to disagree. It's not a scary thing, guys. All right, let's move on. Where was I? You quit everything whenever pressure or offense enters the equation. Number 9, you're easily offended. Easily offended. People got to work on eggshells around you. They got to be careful, because how you internalize everything. You see things a different way. A healthy mind sees, a situation is just, it's what it is. We disagree. I'm not going to take it home with me. I'm not going to cry about it and what have you. I'm not going to meditate on it. We disagree. But yeah, we got to figure out, we got to get our toenails done next week. Girl, what you doing? You want to go get a pedicure? No, I'm busy. Because somebody disagreed with you. Easily offended. And easily offended people are not easy to be friends with. I cannot. And the Bible said, make no friends with an angry man. I understand. Easily offended people, because you got to walk on eggshells. Like you gotta be like, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to wake you up. I wasn't trying to offend you. I'm sorry. I wasn't trying. Easily offended. And that's because you're internalizing all of the hurt, and you're actually casting it onto everybody else. Like everybody has to suffer because of what the other people done to you. Okay, number 10, you don't know what it's like to be loved, or it's hard for you to recognize that you are loved. Most people in the United States, most people on the planet Earth will never truly experience the fullness of love. And I'm not talking about from God, because God is perfect, and he has perfect love. He is love. I'm talking about from a human. The majority of people will never experience it because in order to experience it, you have to become what you want to experience. So we specialize in what is that word I'm looking for? I'll say imbalanced transactions. We want, like, we'll be sitting up there talking about some girl. I want my man to be driving a Benz. I want him to be rich. I want him to have this. And girl, I want him to be slaying demons and everything. But we'll be sitting up there driving a Toyota Corolla. Nothing against the car, but just, get the point across. We'll be driving and the car be clunking all over the place. And we'll be sitting up there working at Burger King and no ambition to do anything. That's unrealistic. It's unrealistic. I can say this, for example. Thank you, Big DB. God bless you. Unrealistic is, for me, if I don't start exercising and doing what I'm supposed to do, it would be unrealistic for me to think I'm going to get a bodybuilder. Did you hear that? It would be unrealistic for me to think that, my husband going to be in the gym. He going to be one of those people that's really careful. No. He going to want him a boo thing that's in the gym. And if she ain't in the gym, he going to want her body to be naturally fit. Unrealistic. So it would be unrealistic for me to be sitting up there going to a gym, just sitting on one of those little benches and stuff like that with a donut. Man, I don't eat donuts. I'm just being funny. Eating a donut, looking at a guy. No. He'll look at me and he'll be like, it's not gonna be interesting. It's unrealistic. If I want a guy that's in the health, then I have to become what I want. I got to get healthy. I got to become what I want. I saw and don't worry, this has been a few years ago. I saw an episode of, well, even if I wanted to watch it today, I would. I saw an episode of Catfish. And follow me on this. This lady was huge. She was real big. And I don't want to say huge. I don't remember her size. I just remember she was overweight. And she had met this guy over the internet. And of course, it's a catfish show. So it was obviously not the guy in the picture. He was a bodybuilder and all of that. He was showing pictures of him in the gym. And this woman, nose wide open. And she went out to meet him, come to find out she had been being catfished and stuff like that. And, the catfish team come out there. And the catfish guy said something to her that some people could have considered cruel, but he was telling the truth. He said, a man like that is not going to want a woman like you. That's how you should have known you were being catfished. A bodybuilder is not going to want a woman who is unhealthy. And it's the truth. And it's not even narcissism. The reality is, if you're not into health, and you're not into self-care, that's going to be something that they're passionate about, right? And so if I want a bodybuilder, I got to get to the gym and pick up some weights and I got to do that consistently until my body bow down to it. Then I have to sit up there and I got to get out of Chick-fil-A drive-through. Talking about nugget combo. Then I could attract somebody like that. Unrealistic people don't realize that they sit back and they think they're going to get one thing when they have not become that. So you don't know what it's like to be loved. A lot of people were never loved by their parents. They go out there and get in a relationship with people who don't have the capacity to love them. They don't seek first God, or seek ye first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness. So they spend the rest of their lives not knowing what it's like to be loved. There are 60, 70, 80-year-old people who have children, who've been married, and they don't know what it feels like to be loved. Many times when you start talking about it, people start thinking about it, and you realize, like, to be genuinely, truly, wholeheartedly loved by a person. They've never experienced that. They never experienced that. I can say I'm one of those people. I've never experienced that. And I'm okay with that. I've experienced it from God, but I can say I was never, when I say from a person, I do mean from like a romantic relationship. I'm talking about close, intimate. I've never experienced that. And I'm not sad about it. And let me tell you why I'm not sad about it. Because I understand why I've never experienced it. And it gives me an experience I can share with my husband. Whatever God does send. So, but in the meantime, I experience that with God. Unconditional agape love from God, I get that from Him, and I get to experience that with Him. And when I do meet my husband, I get to experience that. So that'll be a first for me. So it's all in how you look at a thing, right? So you can sit there and you can look at it like, I never felt love before, true love. I think it would be terrifying to me to say that I've experienced true love and yet things turned out the way that they did. That's when I'd be scared. Because then I'd be like, okay, so that means if people truly love you, they can walk out of your life. They can do things to you to hurt you and not care. So for me to know that, oh, baby, that wasn't real love. Does that make sense to y'all? To hear that wasn't true love is like a breath of fresh air to me. Okay. All right, I'll move on. And number 10, the second part was that you don't recognize when you're truly loved. A lot of times when people deal with rejection, when they do have people in their life that love them, my experience with people who have rejection, a lot of times when they do have people in their life that love them, they really treat them bad. Because they spend all of their time working to win the affection, the attention, and the love and the affirmation of the folks that don't love them. We've all experienced that. You can have somebody that you got their back, you love them, and you're doing all that, and they completely disregard you. You're unimportant to them. You're just kind of nothing. They don't really put too much emphasis on you, but you'll see them throwing all of their attention at somebody that rejected them, throwing all of their attention and everything and compliments and all of their love. And it's kind of like that parent. That parent can have that one little spoiled narcissistic child that doesn't care about anything but themselves, but the parent can have a child that's getting straight A's and doing all the other stuff, and the parent will ignore the child that's getting straight A's and put all of their attention toward the other child. And I've talked about this before, and then I'll move on from here. That was something similar to what my mother had done when I was growing up. But me and my mother had a conversation. We had many conversations before she passed. And one of the conversations we talked about her relationship with me versus her relationship with my sister. And I was honest with her. I was like, yeah, you've always given her all of your attention, and you just, you didn't give me too much attention. You just really just left me out on my own. And so I learned to kind of just do things on my own and be independent or what have you. And my mom said that was because you didn't need me. She did. And I realized something in that moment. And even though I had healed, even when I talked to her about that, because I was healed enough to not be offended by it anymore. I had accepted it. But my mother gave me other insight. She gave me another perspective. And she said, you didn't need me. In other words, she was measuring our strength. She saw me as a strong child that didn't need her. And so as a mother, she went to what she saw or she felt was her feeble child, her weak child. And so she nurtured that child and she gave her attention and everything that she could to that child. But on my end, I'm internalizing it like, okay, well, that's your child and I am who I am. Middle child syndrome is what it is, you ain't got to want me. Somebody will want me at some point or what have you. But we had that conversation, and that conversation was really rewarding. Some of you need to really have a conversation with your parents, but you got to do it from a healed place. You can't have that conversation while you're still hurt because you're going to, go at them in the wrong season. You're not going to be able to discern a moment. And then at the same time, you're going to be emotional and you're going to internalize their response the wrong way. Because I went to my mother when I was healed. We talked about it. And it wasn't even something I struck up. It was just a conversation that ended up happening. Like it was one conversation that led to another, and then we ended up there. But then she was like, you just didn't need me. And when she said that, I began to reflect on my childhood, and I realized that I actually did not cling to my mother. Even before my sister was born, I was not a clinger. I've always been kind of independent, and my mother didn't know how to internalize that. So it caused her to feel maybe a little level of rejection from her child, because what I did was, and this is something for those of you who are parents, because I was closer to my dad. I was more like a dad's girl, but even with my dad, I wasn't that clingy. I was that child that, like I always tell people, I used to like nature. I go out in the woods and play. I'll go outside and catch a grasshopper and do stuff like that. And I would come in and I would try to talk to my parents, but most of the time I was around my dad because I saw my mom as mean. But my mom, she internalized it as me rejecting her. And so because of that, she essentially began to reject me. But it wasn't that she was doing it maliciously. It's just how rejection responds. It's just how rejection responds. All right. Number 11, you isolate yourself. I didn't want to have to go there because I tend to isolate myself. But you isolate yourself. And I can honestly say, as an introvert, that's one part. So that's part of my excuse, but there are other parts to it. A lot of times when you have dealt with rejection, you have a tendency to isolate yourself because you just don't want nobody. Like, you get tired of dealing with the wrong people. You get tired of dealing with people that, are toxic or what have you. And so you start isolating yourself, which is never healthy. But the thing is, one thing I do love is that God won't let me fully, or he wouldn't let me fully isolate myself. Anytime I tried to isolate myself, he would send people into my comfort zone. Or what have you. But people who deal with rejection have a tendency to isolate themselves, and they become lone runners. Or when they get into a relationship, they have a Bonnie and Clyde syndrome. It's me and my man against the whole wide world, or what have you. And that's not the will or the heart of God. Number 12, you always think that God is mad at you. We're human. We're going to make mistakes. We're not going to get things perfect. We're not going to always do the right thing. It's funny. I'm very intentional, but yet and still, I still sometimes be like, dang, I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have done it, or what have you. And I'm not even doing anything major. Maybe I'm sitting up and I can be talking to a relative, and I may say about another relative, well, she's just always been like that. And then when I get off the phone, I may deal with a little bit of guilt and say, I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, or what have you. And what have you. And for me, I'll be like, Lord, I wasn't trying to get into gossip, God. I promise you. And I go to praying and stuff like that. Lord, I'm not a gossiper. That's not my heart. And, God has to deal with me. But I don't deal with that God thinks I'm mad at him. I mean, I don't think that God's mad at me. I disappoint myself from time to time. But a lot of times when people deal with rejection, they always think God's mad at them. When I was dealing with it heavily, I remember every time I failed, every time I made a mistake, I was sure that God had given up on me. I just felt like God was like, you know what, I'm giving up. I didn't put too much into this girl. I've shown her that I love her many times, and yet she fails, and especially when I was in fornication, the guilt behind it. I would be like, there were times where I wouldn't even pray because I felt like God was like, I don't even want to hear from you. I don't even want to hear from you. And a lot of times that comes from you coming from narcissistic families who punish you. People, I was accustomed to people putting me on punishment, and so consequently how people do you, you're going to start thinking that God is doing that to you as well. God is, he's putting me on punishment. He's not speaking to me because I made a mistake, and because I did this or what have you. And that's not the heart of God. So when you're dealing with rejection, you're always thinking that God is mad at you. Always thinking that God is mad at you. Number 13, you give way too much too soon in relationships. This is what we start calling about imbalance. So what have you. So it's just like for me, I'm an entrepreneur, and I have many business ideas. I got book ideas. I got a lot of things that I just got to have, the time to sit down. I got the hands. I got people that are volunteering with me. But a lot of times I just don't have the time to train. But what was I? Oh, you always give way too much in relationships. When it comes to relationships, a lot of times what people do is they just give too much of themselves. And they think that if I prove to you that I love you, I take you out and I spend $60 on a plate for you, and I do all of this, and I even give you my body. I do all of this stuff. I'm proving my love for you. I'm proving my love for you. And people who do that deal with high level hurt, high level rejection, high level hurt, because they're putting way too much in too soon. So I know what I was telling the story for now. When it comes to a business, if I get a business idea, and it's just like I had my Still in Logo company. I had it for maybe 4 or 5 years when God gave me the idea to start a publishing company. When I started the publishing company, I couldn't take every dime that I had and throw it into that publishing company. It would have been unwise, because even though it was an idea that God gave me, I needed to go through putting time, and I had to go through the hardships and the mistakes and, the problems in that company. I couldn't put way too much in too soon. I had to invest. Now I had to give a substantial investment of my time and of my resources. However, I couldn't go for broke with the publishing company. I couldn't do that. So I had to allow myself to build in that company. So it's the same thing when it comes to relationships. If I meet a man and we start talking, I don't go into the relationship where 2 weeks later I say I love you, or even a month later. It's way too soon. A month and a half into the relationship, I'm already out there shopping for wedding gowns. I even thought about something one time. Let me get back into the lesson because I'm ready to be funny. I thought about something one time. I said it would be an interesting experiment, a real funny experiment, to sit there and, talk to a guy and just start talking, just have a camera hidden somewhere and just start talking about just moving too quick. The guy give you his number and then y'all get on the phone. You're like, you know what? Thank you so much for loving me. I love you so much. He's like, wait, what? I just met you. I know. But what we got right now is really special. And I can't even believe, a man like you would want a woman like me. Yeah, so let me get out there because I can have crazy thoughts. But anyhow, you give way too much, way too soon in relationships. You fall in love too quick, and you guys know where my stance is on that. You put way too much of yourself in. You keep trying to prove yourself. People like that have a tendency to go for broken relationships. They have a tendency to go for broken relationships. So they get their hopes up high that this is the one. And so consequently, what they'll do is they'll give their hearts to a person. They'll tell that man everything there is to know about them. They'll have him babysitting their children. And, basically that's giving a sacrifice. When you ask a man that you barely know to babysit your children, you know what you're doing? You're giving your children as a sacrifice. You have a tendency to make an idol out of people. So you're giving that man something that has the greatest value in your life, and you're playing Russian roulette. Hopefully he doesn't do anything to harm your kids or what have you. So you give way too much, way too soon in relationships. You didn't set up here. You met this guy last month. It's his birthday. You already out here trying to buy this dude some expensive shoes. If I meet you a month ago and it's your birthday, I will take you to the park. I'll take you out to eat. That's it. You ain't getting no. I'm not finna. You done set up here. You met him 3 months ago and he already got a car parked out in his driveway with a bow on it. You met him 2 weeks ago. Let's talk about something that's more valuable yourself over to somebody else. Then you're gonna try to give God what's left. Did y'all hear? Y'all be getting quiet on me sometimes. I be thinking, do I need to go? Dang, we had a lot of people to drop off in here. What happened? Last time I came in here, we were almost 400 deep. Is the Saints running? Okay, I'm going back into the message. We'll go back into the message. It's a sacrifice. Definitely a sacrifice. So you give way too much too soon in relationships. Number 14, you claim to love hard. You probably truly never experienced love in your life. So what you have is obsession. It's not love. You claim to love hard. When people say I love hard, what they're really saying is I have a tendency to make an idol out of people. That's what they're really saying. When people say I love hard, they mean they tend. Oh, okay, awesome. It was buffering. Okay, is it still buffering? Yeah, because I see the numbers climb back up. I was like, is the Saints leaving, Lord? Did I say something? No, don't have me going back into rejection. All right. Okay, not anymore. Okay, awesome. So where was I? You give way too much too soon in relationships, and you love hard. You get into relationships and you give way too much of yourself to a person. You have to give God what belongs to him, and you have to give him his time and what have you. This is what keeps you from going into idolatry with a person. And you got to make sure you stay within the will of God. If not, then you're going to give to a person what belongs to God. And when you give to a person the sacred thing, what ends up happening is that person becomes an idol, and it becomes very hard for you to let that person go. That's the reason why 10 years later, there are some of you still stalking these exes' profiles. 10 years later, you're still on their profiles. 10 years later, you still haven't let go. 10 years later, you still, obsessing over him, talking about him. It's because you gave way too much too soon and you love hard. Number 15, you often compare yourself to others. People who deal with rejection have a major issue with comparison. They're very competitive, and Many times they don't see anything wrong with it, and competition or being competitive is not healthy. The only person you should compete with is yourself. But being competitive is not healthy. Me in business, God taught me not to be competitive in business. And consequently, I have one of the top seal and logo companies in the world, not in the United States. I have, because there's not that many of us out there. So don't think I'm over here talking about, sitting on some, on some, what's that man's name? Don't think I'm sitting over here talking. I'm sitting on a bunch of zeros. What I'm saying is this: I have something that is. I have over 1,000 seals and logos in my company, and so, yeah. What was I going with that? You often compare yourself to others. You're competitive. Oh yeah, I have a seal and logo company, and when I first started off, I used to look at other seal and logo companies, and the Lord rebuked me. And thankfully He did, because what it did was it kept me from being distracted by them and mimicking what they were doing. Because when you compete with other people, you will try to mimic them. That is a natural. When Burger King looked at McDonald's, they started competing with McDonald's. Consequently, Burger King runs a close second to McDonald's in every region. So anytime you compete, and this was the Lord had ministered to me at that time, when you compete with somebody or when you're following that person, then what's going to happen is you're going to remain behind the person that you're competing with. You would never go ahead of them. You would never even walk alongside them, because you're going to have to wait for them to complete something and be successful of it, and then you're going to go mimic it. So you're always going behind them, gleaning and following in their footsteps. So if you ever want to be a leader in an industry, you don't compete in that industry. Instead, what you do is you just become innovative. Don't look at what the people are doing around you. You just be innovative. You just sit there and you learn. And I always think about this little girl. I remember she was a really good dancer, but whenever I would see her dancing with other kids, she would, when she looked at them, it would throw her off. And she was the best dancer of all the kids, but it would throw her off. And I would always tell her, don't look at them. Keep your head, focused. Keep your head focused. If you look straight up ahead, you won't get thrown off. But when you look at them, then when she mess up, you're going to mess up too. That's what it looks like to compete or to follow a person. But people who have rejection often compare themselves to others. And I'll say this, this is not on my list, but a lot of times when you're dealing with people who have rejection issues, a lot of times they begin to mimic others. They start mimicking. So for example, every person, every woman who's ever gotten any measure of success I think most women know that it's hard to hang around there are some women who really have no identity. They have no clue as to who they are. They have no clue. I saw a video on TikTok and the girl said something, and it's the truth. She was like, the worst type of woman to get around is a woman who have no clue, like no self-worth, no clue as to who she is. And I was sitting there shaking my head like, yep, because they will completely mimic you. Everything that you say that you do, oh God, I've had them type of sisters. And they be like, you know what, Tiffany, I feel like God called me to graphic design. That's good. Awesome. Sister, go for it. Yeah, Then when they found out you're in photography, I think God calling me photography too. And you don't think nothing of it. Okay, that's good, sis, And then the next thing you know, everything that you're called to, they're called to. Everything that you're called to, they're called to. Everything that you're supposed to do. And then the next thing you know, you get yourself a light-skinned dude and they're going to want him. Or they're going to go get somebody that look like him. They got to go get somebody that look like him. All right, y'all. They'll go get somebody that look like him because they don't know their identity. Number 16, another manifestation of rejection is unrealistic expectations. That's the spirit of sabotage manifesting itself, if you want to know the truth. Unrealistic expectation comes from the spirit of sabotage because you get in a relationship with people, or let's talk about church. You go into a church and you have unrealistic expectations when it comes to your pastor. So you expect to go in and they're supposed to recognize the anointing that's on your life because you're called to be a prophet to the nations. And they're supposed to recognize that. And then once they recognize that, they're supposed to go and run and say, hey, listen, we got this person over here. She's a prophet to the nations. Like, you should see it. She was telling us about people that she's prophesied to, and she talked about one dude that, he was going into cardiac arrest, and everything, and all of this stuff, and she's got a major testimony. We got to find a spot for her. We got to, but we ain't tested the spirit in the woman. I know, but we got to find a spot because she talked about she served at her last church and all that. We got to find a spot for her. Unrealistic expectations. People actually think like that. People will come into a church and literally stand back there and just walk in there the first day, realize that the anointing is there. Excuse me. Is there a way I can talk to your pastor? Yes, ma'am. Anything I can help you with? Well, I'm thinking about joining, but I think there are some things he should know about me before I join. Jezebel. Narcissist. That's Jezebel's spirit. There are some things he should know about me before I join. Because she feels unrealistic expectations. I know you don't know me, and I know you don't know me from a bag of feathers. But I was here today, and I was really impressed with your teaching. Kudos to you. But I'm sitting there, and I felt the anointing of God, and the Lord was sharing with me that I am called to this church. And I think that there is a little you should know about me, Pastor. The Lord has used me. I've been behind the veil for the last 12 years. You ain't been in the church? Well, yeah, no, I was behind the veil. I was behind the veil for the last 12 years, and I've been in the face of the Most High God. And, he had me praying, and I've raised about 25 people from the dead. Really? Yes. But, you haven't been in a church. How? Well, God takes me up in the spirit. And I can see dead people. And when I'm in his spirit, I begin to say, I said, come to life, and their eyes open. And yeah. And so, okay. But I just thought you should know who I am, before I join your church. In other words, are you going to give me a position? It is sometimes not that deep, unrealistic expectations. Sometimes people in friendships. That's why I don't let people put labels on me too fast. Maybe it's trauma, but I don't let people, come straight up to me talking about something. You my friend. Sis, I'm not your friend yet. You don't know me like that. Because I found that some people, when they say friends, there are some expectations, and especially sisters that like to say best friend a little too fast. Oh my God, bestie. Oh, no, not bestie. I'm not your bestie. You don't know me like that. Because when people say that, there is some unrealistic expectation attached to that tag, that label. That's why they're moving so fast. That unrealistic expectation in many cases is, I expect you to answer the phone every time I call you. If I need something, I expect you to be there. If I'm sad, I don't care what you're doing. You can be in the middle of an interview on Fox television, but I need you to end the interview and say, I'm so sorry. I'm getting a call from my best friend, and she needs me. It looks like, oh wow, she just missed the cycle. I'm so sorry. I gotta go. Yeah, she just missed the cycle, and that's not good. Tyrone, that would be a nightmare. I gotta go. I'm sorry. I gotta go. But man, we're paying you. You're on a contract. You're just gonna have to sue me. I gotta go. Unrealistic expectations. Unrealistic expectations attached to sabotage, and it is a manifestation of one of the fruits of sabotage, the spirit of sabotage. It sets you up so that every relationship you enter, you won't flourish in that relationship. You will end up sabotaging it because you have unrealistic expectations, and as it relates to it, so you end up with repeated disappointments in that relationship until you eventually sabotage it and abandon the relationship altogether. Number 17, you reject yourself. What is the manifestation of you rejecting yourself? A lot of times it's going to be you changing yourself just to fit in. You change your personality. You study people around you, and you realize what type of personalities they have. So you're able to chameleon your way into relationships, and you constantly rejecting yourself because people don't accept you as you are, or you don't feel like they accept you as you are. But here's the problem. You may be in a region of thought that God called you out of. So everybody in that region of thought is going to reject you because you're not supposed to be there. This is the comfort zone of prison. The doors are open. You were supposed to came out a long time ago, but you ain't came out. So yes, you're going to experience rejection right there because God called you out of that place. So in order for you to stay there, you go and put on prison stripes. You got to look bound just like them. I know they're Christians and what have you, but you know what? I got to show them that I don't mind working. I got, even though I can have a contrary thought, I've studied, I've learned about perversion and all this other stuff, and I ain't trying to feed that demon. But in order for me to fit in, these girls, they feel rejected real easily, and they're double-minded and unstable in all their ways. In order for me to fit in with them, I got to channel the seductions. I got to go pick her back up. Got to make a U-turn. I repented, but I got to make a U-turn. I got to go pick up seduction and go pick up some stuff or what have you, and then they're going to accept me. And that's self-rejection. Another form of self-rejection, then we'll move on to the next. And we just got a few more left after this, y'all. Thank you for being patient. Another form of self-rejection is when you, and I'm going to make some people mad when I say this, but I love y'all. Okay? When you completely change your identity physically. It's popular nowadays. So you see a woman, say a black girl with a blonde wig and blue contacts in her eyes. That's self-rejection. She doesn't feel beautiful enough to be accepted. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about colored wigs. There's nothing wrong. But I'm talking about a person who is really trying not to be black or really trying to look a certain way, like she doesn't like. Because there are some people that are just creative. I know people who are creative who wear colorful wigs. And they're not trying to go outside of themselves. It's just their creativity or what have you. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about that girl that you will never see her outside of that blonde wig. You will never see her without those blue contacts in her eyes. She just rejects herself. She's not feeling pretty enough or what have you. She doesn't feel beautiful enough to get what she wants. So what she does is she will reject herself and she will disguise herself. All right, number 18, I'll move from this one real fast. You view correction as rejection. When people come up to you, especially people in leadership positions, or, the Bible says the prophet is subject to prophecy. Maybe you're an empath, you're a prophetic person. And though somebody comes and corrects you and you internalize that and you won't let it go. You get mad and you hold on to stuff. You just won't let it go. And even though the person was correcting you in love, you just won't let it go. And, for you, it's like, I don't like her. I don't like her. Or if your pastor rejects you, you leave the church. If your boyfriend rejects you, you corrects you. If your boyfriend corrects you, or anybody corrects you, you walk away from them. Or maybe you stay in a relationship, but you emotionally distance yourself from the person because you see correction as rejection. You internalize it the wrong way. And that's a sign that you've probably been through some abusive relationships. And so you don't even know the difference between correction. So consequently, you can't be corrected, meaning you are unteachable, which means that you shouldn't be in a relationship with anybody. Number 19, we got 20 of y'all, so we're almost done. Number 19, the people in your life have to walk on eggshells because you read into everything. We talked about that kind of earlier. You're easily offended. So I think we can kind of skip over them. But we got to put happy face emojis in the text messages to you. I have to be sensitive to your moods, your mood swings and stuff like that. Because, it's easy for you to feel rejected. It's easy for you to feel rejected. I remember having a friend some years ago, and I would have shouting matches with this girl. That's why I closed the door on the friendship, because I got tired of having shouting matches with her. Because I won't even have that with my family. But I had shouting matches with her where she would get mad at me for not answering my phone. And I thought that was so weird. Because my phone lives on silent. Even to this day, it lives on silent. And it's because I sleep randomly at random times of the day. I go to bed in the middle of the night. I wake up early. I don't like being awakened from my sleep. I hate it. So I keep my phone on silent. And so sometimes I'm going to miss text messages and call, but I always return it. But she took it hard. She took it to heart. Like if I missed her call, and I got to the point where I would intentionally miss her calls because I was like, no, I'm not about to feed that. I'm not about to feed that belief that I'm obligated to answer her calls. But she internalized. So when I answer the phone, she'd be like, "Yeah, I'll never answer your phone." And I'm like, "Dude, I talk to you pretty much every darn day. I missed the call. You know, I would have called you back." And she would call me when I'm on the phone with people, and then if I didn't answer, she'll call right back. And my phone just said, constantly clicking. I'm like, hold on. Hello? Dang, you'll never answer your phone. And I'm like, child. So it was really annoying to me. And I got tired of her being very argumentative. I got tired of her doing that. So I walked away. I was like, I can't do this because I could be in a really good mood and she called me and just completely ruined my day with that stuff. Number 20, you are drawn to people who are rejected. It's the last one. You're drawn to people who are rejected, meaning you accept people that are broken and you think that they're just like the cars, they're fixer uppers. You look at them and you see, because you know what it feels like to be rejected, you accept people who are rejected more than you would accept anybody else because you know what it feels like to be rejected. And you feel like, well, if I help them, they'll appreciate me. You know, if I get in a relationship with him after all the stuff he done told me, he'll appreciate me because his mama dogged him out, his exes dogged him out. And if I prove myself to be the woman who does not dog him out, he'll appreciate me. So whenever he does become whole, whenever he does become successful, whenever he does become the man that I know he has the potential to be, he will stick around and he will love me. And, you know, by that time, this car that was parked on the side of the road and broke down and didn't nobody want it, I'm gonna help it get fixed up. I'm gonna pimp my ride. I'm gonna take it to church. I'm gonna attach it to a hauling truck, and not a hauling truck, but I'm gonna attach it to a tow truck, and I'm gonna tow him to church. And the pastor gonna fix him, and I'm gonna fix him, and we all gonna fix him. And he's gonna turn around, and he's gonna be an amazing person. And then everybody's gonna reject because now they're gonna see the potential of this man that everybody rejected because I told him to church. And now that he got fixed up, everybody want him. But you know what? He appreciate me because I didn't prove myself at the low level. I entered the relationship on the low level when he had nothing but a broken heart and a missing tooth. And I came into his life and I proved myself and we got his teeth fixed and everything. And now he loved me and he ain't gonna leave. That's rejection. And women who do that spend quite a bit of time dealing with hurt. You know what happens? You fix his mouth. You take him to church. You get him a new wardrobe. And now he out here and you didn't help him get hired on a job. And now he out here, and women that normally rejected him, this is why the greatest man that, y'all hear me on this, because y'all got it twisted. Most women think that the greatest man to get is somebody who don't have anything. I can help him and he's going to love and appreciate me once he gets it. No. The most powerful, stable man you can ever get is a man who has it together and has every female throwing their draws at him and he ignores them because he wants you. He can have, that ain't nothing like a power. That's what real power is. He can choose any of these girls, but he recognizes that you are a wife. You are unique. That's where his attention is. You getting somebody, and I'm not against getting people that, because we all need help in some area or another. Don't get me wrong. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. But getting a fixer-upper of a dude is not healthy. And just like to my brothers, getting a fixer-up of a woman is not healthy. Because there are some women out there, so let's go on this angle. There are some women out there, there are cases where there were women that were like 350 pounds. And they met a guy that was 500 pounds. And both of them were obese and overweight. And they got together and and then the woman messed around and got surgery. That surgery, you tie your stomach. She went got surgery, what have you, and then she lose all that weight. Then she get in the gym and start tuning up, and all her little cuteness start kicking out of there. See, the greatest test is when somebody can have somebody other than you and they still choose you. Then when she go get herself together, she leave her man. Cause now she qualified for the bodybuilder that rejected her. Now she qualified for Tyrone, who looked right past her. Now she qualified for these different men, but she got this 500-pound dude sitting there. And he loves her. He loves her so much. He plans on, right, gastric bypass, thanks. He plans on getting it too. He's just trying to get his nerve up. But no, she ain't trying to wait on that. She has an opportunity. It's the same thing with a guy. A guy, a lot of times, who's come out of the pit, he's dealt with his fair share of rejection. And there are certain type of women who will establish themselves as high ranking. So what they do is, this is how people establish rank in your life. They'll walk by you and not speak. Y'all gotta recognize psychology. I love it. But a woman, once she wants to establish rank in your life, it establishes a secure position in your life. Brothers, can I give you a little bit of insight? I'm going to give you some game. So this is how a female can do you. When you have no rank, no power, no money, but you're going to college or you're doing something and you don't look like you're going nowhere, a female can do this right here to you. She does that to other females. It's psychology. She acts stuck up. It's psychology. So when she does that, what she's establishing is that I'm better than you. I rank higher than you. You don't qualify for a girl like me. Do you know it's actually very effective? Because what happens to a man psychologically is he does end up getting with a woman who, may seem to be like lower hanging fruit. However, that woman can help him get his career, help him get up. And all of a sudden, that female that walked by him and did this right hand to him, he never got her attention. He never got that. All of a sudden, she's like, hey, you look nice. What's this you wearing? It's psychology. Now you feel accepted. Now you feel accepted. Now she seems to be better than the girl you have at home because she rejected you 5 years ago. And some guys fall into the trap. They'll leave a woman that they've been with for 20 years and get with that female. Because 5 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, she did a psychological maneuver on you. It works on other females too. Women will walk by a female. I've had women try that with me. And it's funny because I'm not a psychology major when it comes to school because I didn't go to school for it, but I consider myself a psychology major in life. And so I find the psychology of people to be interesting. And so that female can walk by me and she put her head in the air. Little narcissist. And I see narcissists all around. Old narcissists, young narcissists, little Jezebels in training. It's real funny. But when she walks by me and she's like, what she's trying to do is establish rank. If I deal with rejection and I don't heal from rejection, if I get any measure of success, then she's going to turn and say, hey, Tiffany, now I feel like I qualify to hang with her. It's in Hollywood movies. That's why you see the little nerd in the Hollywood movie that she wasn't accepted. Then all of a sudden she has some type of metamorphosis. Something happens to her, and all of a sudden she, they take the glasses off her, do her hair, they do the makeup, and she starts looking beautiful. And first the girls try to, the popular mean girls, they try to sabotage her, but when it doesn't work, they accept her. Then she rejects all of her nerdy friends because finally she's accepted. That's psychology. It's psychology, and I tell you, it's effective as heck, because you see a lot of women who do that. Because in order for her to hang now with the popular girl, she has to get rid of her dorky squad. Then she got to make the sacrifice. She has to call them dorks. And they do that with men. And to my brothers, don't fall for that. Because I've seen men leave 20 and 30-year marriages for the girl who would have rejected them in high school. The girl didn't want them. She used psychology on them 20 years ago, and it's still effective to this day. What she established was rank, and that guy still sees her or her type as being up here. So consequently, when he can afford her type, I'm giving you a word. I'm giving you a word. I'm giving you a word. When he can afford her type, he will toss away his other female and he'll get with her. Because she used psychology. She used psychology. All right, let me go, because I get passionate when I start talking about psychology. All right, let's go ahead and see you. Correction. Where were we? Oh, you are drawn to people who are also rejected. You're drawn to people, and that was the last one, and then we'll get ready to. I got 2 pointers for something else, and I'm gonna let y'all go. Just to say this, when we start talking about mean girls and stuff like that, they're rejected as well. So they specialize in rejection. Those are the queens of rejection. Those are the ones that sit on the throne of rejection. They specialize in it. So what they do is they reproduce with it by rejecting other people. Consequently, it's psychology. It causes people who are rejected to preserve a spot in their hearts for them that they can later come into, that they can later enter into. Because when you preserve that spot, when you see her as high ranking, when you see her as a queen, when you see her as a certain way, if you ever have any measure of success, you still look up to her. And now you feel like you can afford her. Now you feel like, you can qualify. And now all of a sudden, she gives you attention. And not just attention, but she gives you her undivided or seemingly undivided attention. She's like, what are you doing? She sends you a text message. Hey, what's up? You looking cute. And then what you end up doing is it feels so good. It feels so powerful to have her attention finally. It makes you feel like you've made it. It was psychology on her part her whole time. When it comes to psychology, when you're dealing with seducing spirits, they leave markers that allow them to return or to establish a place in your life should you ever arrive at a certain point in your life. It's very effective. I'll give you an example. A female can come into your life, and a woman can be the best woman you've ever been with. I'm talking about cooking, cleaning, all that. I'm talking about coming to your life for a short span of time, completely blow your mind, and then exit your life. What she just did was it's like an impossibility. Now it's hard for you to find a woman that can measure up to what she was doing, and so what she does is no matter who you get with, you always reserve a spot for her in your life. You'll always reserve a spot for her in your life. Same thing with guys. All right, I'm gonna get ready to close, but I got 2 things I'm gonna share with you. Let me see if I want to still share. Okay, I'll share with you just 2 facts. I was supposed to write more out, but I'm glad I didn't, because I think we've gone way over. 2 facts about rejection. It partners with rebellion, pride, witchcraft, abandonment, obsession, sabotage, envy, murder, the orphan spirit, and suicide to accomplish its agenda. And this is not a complete list of spirits that it partners with, but these are some of the spirits that it partners with: rebellion, pride, witchcraft, abandonment, obsession, sabotage, envy, control, murder, the orphan spirit, and suicide. It uses these spirits to accomplish its agenda. And number 2, it reproduces itself by isolating its victims and then surrounding them with people who will ultimately hurt and reject them. So rejection reproduces itself by constantly basically having you to get in relationships with people that will essentially reject you. How do you dismantle the system of rejection? I'm going to do an entire teaching. If I do the teaching tonight, then we'll be on here for another 3 hours. So I'm going to come back in a few days, and I'm going to do a teaching on how to dismantle rejection. And I'm going to see if I can steal my apostle. I'm going to see if I can steal him, get him to come on here to talk to you guys about it. Let's see, y'all need to vote. But I'm gonna see if I can get him to come on here and talk about it so we can talk about how to dismantle rejection. But thank you, Big D, Big DB. God bless you. But that's how rejection works. Rejection is a system. Remember, spirits need a passport. They need a passport. And once they get a passport, they're going to want a green card. And once they get into your life, they're going to reproduce themselves. The little kids are rebellion, rejection, pride, all of these issue things that are fear of rejection. These are little babies that you have with those spirits. They need a passport. They got to get you to exchange. And it's no different than when it comes to a witch. A witch wants power from the spirit realm. Demons want access to the natural realm, so they make an exchange. That's all. It's all just making an exchange. Everything in this earth is honestly, it's all about making an exchange. When you get in a relationship with somebody, it's making an exchange. When you go to a church, it's making an exchange. When you go to a job, you're making an exchange. Everything that we do is making an exchange. But I learned in business, as an entrepreneur, there are some exchanges you don't make. You got to know what investments to make and which ones not to make. Okay? I'm going to come back and do a part 2 to this because I don't want to keep you guys long. But I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about how to overcome rejection. I want to make sure that I do a full teaching on that. I pray that you guys were blessed. Thank you for posting up the Cash App, Sister Catherine. And thank you for moderating again. I love me some you. For those of you who want to sow a seed, you can sow a seed. If this blessed you, be sure to sow a seed into this message. And I will be back in a couple of days to do part 2 to the message. Make sure you commit to coming back on. And do me a favor, share the video because you have no idea. It's a common spirit. There is not a person on your social media that's not suffering through rejection. So share this, share with your family, share with your loved ones, and share. When we see videos shared massively, it makes us want to come out and do more teaching. All right. I love y'all, and we will talk again soon.